War Report family, y'all know what we got to do, man. It is the necessary. You get your hashtags going already. Hashtag get your weight up. Every time we do one of these, we got to give away a shirt. It's me, your man Ike Jones, in here with your guy B Will, Bryan Harsin, no longer the head football coach of Auburn University. I mean, listen, man, I'm gonna let y'all get y'all comments off for sure here, because yeah, I know
The
people got a
very
lot
first
to say.
super chat is my forehead apparently saying Jimbo gonna look good in orange and blue.
This is absolutely not going to happen.
Not.
No.
Do not.
Absolutely the F not.
Absolutely not.
No, sir. Well, I might shut the channel down. I might shut the channel down.
I will not be participating very much if that was in fact true.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this. You guys make sure you get your hashtag, get your weight up in the comments. Once again, we are going to be giving away a He Gone t-shirt at some point in time today during this live. I'll just randomly pull at some point in time. But we're going to give away that shirt because that's just how we do when people leave the program like this. This is kind of part of the thing. But B Will, your initial thoughts on everything. Appreciate everybody for jumping in, man. You're rocking with your boys, the War Report. Your initial thoughts.
My initial thoughts are, I wonder if that Arkansas game did him in.
I don't see how it didn't. I mean, it did him in the
as far as when it happened.
Yeah. I don't see how
I think he was. I 41, think he was probably gone.
41 points to Arkansas.
Yeah. I think he was gone at the end of the year anyway. Some of the things that were pointing to that were not opening up the football facility. Just kind of a general malaise about things. It was business as usual for a while. Coming out of that bye, though, and we said this yesterday, that was the most disappointing effort coming out of a bye that we've seen since maybe since 2012. I don't remember who we played after our bye in 2012. They might have fought like hell coming out of the bye and made it a competitive game that we lost, but I don't remember us having many competitive games that year. So it seems like, and it feels like, looking that bad coming out of the bye, that was it. That was like, no, not even this last month. We're not waiting till December, whatever, when it goes down by 5 million right now. And that was, we had been on for a while to say, we're not going to bury the man in September. We're not going to bury him in February. We're not going to bury him in the summer. Let him have a go at it as he continues to try to do the job. That post bye week performance was so damning that you can't do this job here. Not under these circumstances, not here. It's not working. And
let me answer this question real quick. I answered it in the chat, but let me find it again. Joker 04136 said, why do we fire him after a press conference? I reposted the presser from Saturday today. That press conference wasn't from today. That was from Saturday. They canceled today's press conference that usually is going to be happening. So this was not, they made sure they canceled the press conference and got that done before he addressed the media again today. So that was just me reposting something. So
cool. So yeah, we're here. We are here now. We'll probably wait before we start doing a who's the next coach content, because I want C in on it. I want Mike in on it before we can have this full rounded conversation about where things are going to go next. But we're here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was inevitable. Like you said, I think the handwriting was on the wall weeks ago that this was going to go down. The team, oh man, there will be something coming up on our website where I will kind of somebody from here, I don't know if it's going to be me, will kind of give a history of the Bryan Harsin tenure at Auburn and all of the things that I think contributed to where we are today. And ultimately the downfall of the coach. Some would say the downward spiral of the program. The program is definitely spiraling out of control. I don't think, if you listened to me rant yesterday about the dysfunction that seems to be permeating Auburn football, you know what my feelings are right now about the program. Are all of those things squarely on the shoulders of Bryan Harsin? Absolutely not. But it does indicate that there have been problems from an administration standpoint for a while.
Mhm.
Some of those things stemming back to the previous athletic director and administration. Like we
Mhm.
have issues
Mhm.
with foundationally with Auburn football specifically
Mhm.
and Auburn athletics as a whole that we've got to get addressed with who's in charge, who's calling the shots, and who has autonomy over what things.
Right.
And I think the first step in the positive direction for trying to figure this out was them getting on board with a new president, right? The new president was just ready to come in, take inventory of what's going on, and figure out who he wants to put in place for what things. That president has put word out there of who they want to be the next athletic director. And the next domino to fall was going to be what the previous athletic director and any athletic director with any brain would say is the crown jewel of Auburn's athletic department, and that's the football program.
Right.
Regardless of how good basketball is, the football program is the crown jewel. You have to have football. C-Dub jumping in with us right here with the great facial expression. But you have to have your football program playing well and competing at a high level. I don't think that there's any way around that. Um, if you guys haven't already, make sure you tweet out the link to this. If you're on Twitter, share this on Facebook. Make sure we get more people into this conversation because I do want to hear voices from the Auburn family. Why we started this channel is because we wanted more of the Auburn family to be a part of conversations we were having around this. But yeah, the inevitable happens. C-Dub jumping in here. C, what are your initial reactions to the news today? Bryan Harsin out as the head football coach of Auburn University. After I get C's comments, we will go to the comment section and start hearing from you all. Make sure, again, you hashtag get your weight up to get in on the He Gone t-shirt giveaway.
Wow. Is really because this is really unprecedented when you go back and look at how Auburn has handled coaches. And I've said this even on our show. The guy who was close to getting fired, Terry Bowden, that guy resigned. Now you can argue that he was forced to resign, but it's a resignation nonetheless. Auburn has never fired a coach in the middle of the season. Now, you can argue desperate times call for desperate measures. Auburn was in a situation with a coach that had lost a lot of support. Any support he had going into the season, he had lost it a few weeks into the season. So with a new athletic director coming in, he got busy real fast. There was no wait to the end of the season, which I thought would likely happen. So for us to be here, I'm curious as the future of Auburn, and are we going to see some even more unprecedented decisions made in terms of how they run the football program? Is this the beginning of something? Evidenced by what's happened today. Just based on how I know Auburn has handled these situations, they don't do stuff like this. They really don't. They wait to the end of the season, even though a guy may be gone. Now, the Auburn way was you already will be talking through back channels to agents of coaches. You'll be getting that lined up. We're always good about putting the cart before the horse. This time we actually addressed the horse issue first.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious as to the decisions that are going to be made in the subsequent weeks. If this is different today, I'm curious how different things will be moving forward. I'm playing the wait and see game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you have a good point. I think the new president is coming in and being the meticulous person that everyone thought that he was going to be and doing things in the correct order of operations. Look, if you're a mathematician engineer, then you understand what the correct order of operations is, which is I'll handle getting to a new coach after I get done with this first coach. First and foremost, I need to have an athletic director in place and understand what that athletic director's vision is for where they want the sports program to be. All indications seem to point towards that has been handled. The next order in the operations was get rid of this coach before. I don't even want to put that on that AD's hands. I want to make sure he's secure him, get rid of the current coach, allow his first act to be hiring his coach for, again, the crown jewel of the program. He's doing it all right. This seems to be exactly how you want to lay out the order of operations. He didn't put the blood on the hands of the new AD, but he made sure he had a clean slate walking in the door. You can't handle this any better, in my opinion, as a new president coming in and figuring out how you want the lay of the land to go. We're going to jump into the comments here, and I'm going to get some more reactions from you guys here in the panel. But Walt Taylor jumps in and he says, "Choo choo, aka the Joker."
Lane train. That's what he's saying.
We'll definitely talk more about that. The two names that have come up the most have been Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin.
I want to jump off, fellas. I just wanted to say my quick piece. I don't want to be. I don't have 15 million waiting on me. If I get fired, I'm supposed to be working. So I just want to say my piece. Love you guys. War Eagle to y'all. I'll be watching online. Holla.
For sure. Right, all right. Next up, we have B Will's forehead jumping in. Is there truth to the new AD having full autonomy? This is actually something I wanted to address because I thought it was interesting that the rumor is that the athletic director coming from Mississippi State, it's so interesting. We're playing Mississippi State this weekend, and we're likely hiring away the athletic director from that program. But the rumor is that part of what that athletic director has as stipulations, which is something that we've talked about with the new coaching, is they wanted hands off of their programs. Right. If I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be the athletic director at Auburn University, I have final say of what happens with the athletic programs at Auburn University. That was part of, again, this is rumors. I don't know. And y'all know me. I don't like to substantiate rumors unless I feel very accurate about what I'm hearing. And what I've heard is a lot of what delayed this being officially announced was in part of the negotiation process, some guarantees that y'all gonna let me run this.
Right.
I'm going to run my athletic programs how I want to run them. Let me do my thing. And if that's the case, and if that athletic director has full autonomy, number one, you don't get to hear any of the it's such and such's fault. It falls directly on his desk. But number two, that means the coaching hire is someone that he stamps fully as well. Very interested to see what direction he wants to take with that coaching hire. Thoughts on this one, B?
Yeah, and my first thought was good. And this is what we thought about, well, really the head coach, but I'm glad to see that the athletic director has bowled up to this extent as well. I know what y'all do. No, put it in writing. Put it in writing that I am running this, that I am taking suggestions from you as I want to. You can make a suggestion just like anybody in my office can make a suggestion or offer up a name or an idea. I am making these decisions. It's my job, not yours. Put it in writing. Get out of my way. I love that.
Yeah, I definitely love if all of those things are true, I love that right there. CM Taco says, I like Deion and Freeze, but I think Kiffin would be a good fit. If Deion had more years of coaching experience, I would go with him. Listen, Deion Sanders is an energetic personality that will definitely help you with young athletes, bringing them in. Deion Sanders only works if he has the right staff with him, though. Deion by himself is good energy for your program to be a good sustained program. I don't see Deion as a great X's and O's guy. But then again, I don't see, and I know, listen, I don't see Nick Saban as a great X's and O's guy.
Right.
Nick Saban was energy and momentum that Alabama needed when they needed it.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to a Deion Sanders hiring. But ultimately, I don't get a decision in this. But I'm not sure that it's going to happen for a lot of reasons. But this new athletic director and president, if all of these things are true and the synergy is correct, that does open the door for a guy like Deion to take a job like this because they would let him run his program his way.
Right. I agree with that. I know people want Freeze. I know people like the idea of Kiffin. I don't like the idea of retreads. When I say retreads, I mean conference retreads. And it's not that can't be successful. I mean, Tubbs came from Ole Miss, but it's really a new day and age. And we know who these coaches are. I think what Auburn needs is still somebody who can build. Deion has his own momentum. He brings his own momentum. He brings his own audience cheering and energy and excitement. And that excitement is great to kickstart it. I have no idea what that looks like 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, if the position group hires aren't correct and the fan base is clamoring at you. Like Jackson State is the situation that we talked about with Mark Stoops at Kentucky and really Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. There are a couple of places where they were like, listen, you are definitely the best thing we could ever have here. Whatever you want, it's fine. Except we know that Deion fixes problems we have had over several years, which is energy in recruiting. What if the success does not follow? Deion Sanders ain't finna have y'all bad talking him. He go, man, shut up. Auburn is prime time.
Right.
And then but how's the fan base gonna feel about that? It's gonna work up front. It's definitely gonna work. The talent boost would be phenomenal. The energy around the program would be phenomenal. But how is that gonna work when it doesn't work? And that's why I don't know if it's the best fit, because I don't know if Deion does anything, but I'll see y'all later, because a lot of people want Deion. Anybody will want Deion just for the simple fix that Deion provides right now. I think there would be a different hire that makes more sense, because there's somebody who would be long-term that hopefully what we're getting here is a Pat Dye, not in style or approach, but is going to be here, is going to have success, and enough success where he gets to retire on his own terms. That's the type of coaching hire we want here. I don't know if that makes sense for Deion Sanders,
right,
to be tied down to Auburn long enough to be a man and get a statue like that. I don't think that makes sense for Deion, because he can make his fortune doing almost anything and has already made a fortune. I think it makes more sense to get somebody who football is their bread and butter, would be, and they're in it for that type of long haul. And that's why I question the hire for with Deion Sanders. But Freeze and Kiffin are, I think we're stretching for what we know they probably can do. I don't think Lane Kiffin's a great head coach. I don't. I think he brings some of that instant recruiting, he's a mouthpiece. He's going to keep it exciting, but I don't know what he can do long-term. He's never done it long-term.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would be guessing with anybody, but the difference is if you go small conference or up-and-comer first, you get potential and you don't pay $1 jillion to get them. And I think that there's more value there.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. The question is the longevity of a Deion hire for me. It's not necessarily what energy it will bring to the program immediately. It absolutely will. But how long do you have Deion Sanders? Is he a rental?
Right.
And here's my thing. I don't necessarily have an issue with a rental, because we need a stopgap. And so if Deion's going to be a good stopgap, we just need to have a long-term plan. If he decides this isn't a long-term solution for him, that needs to be a conversation before you hire him. Hey, how many years do you really have committed to Auburn, contingent upon blah, 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 this and this and that, so that you can have a plan to get out of that situation if you need to. So I'm at this point, because of what I've seen thus far, I'm trusting the decision of the president, and hopefully this new AD will have. Listen, Mississippi State's programs have moved in a positive direction since he's been the AD there. So he knows how to run an athletic department. So I don't have an issue with that hire either. We can definitely talk more about that hire specifically. But today we are talking about the dismissal of Coach Bryan Harsin and thoughts that we have on that. Going back to the chat here, we've got Cleveland Brown jumping in and said, Cohen came in swinging with an axe, deuces Harsin. Again, I don't think that this is a Cohen decision. I do think that President Roberts made this decision so that Cohen didn't have to. But I do think that the hire of Cohen was the domino that needed to fall before Bryan Harsin, that coupled with the Arkansas loss in the fashion that it was, coming off of a bye week.
Yeah, and I think that the press statement that we got from the university said, after taking an exhaustive look at all these factors, President Roberts made this decision.
Yep.
He came to this conclusion. So this was you're my guy. You're going to go. We got some months to figure the rest out.
Yep. That's exactly what it was. Listen, again, I know people wanted this to happen weeks ago. I like the fact that he took his time to inventory things, to say, all right. And apparently they had a conversation with him like, look, you've got to get this together. And the first effort, that's like, look, me and B got kids. That's like you sit down with your son and you're like, hey, listen, you effing up. I need to see something better. And literally the first thing that kid does when you turn around is go throw poop on the wall. Like, you're like, hey, you know what? we gonna have to handle this, because I don't know. I wasn't clear in what my expectations were. Let me try this a different way. You weren't hearing that. We just gonna pony up this 15 and let you on up out the door.
Yeah. And that appears to be what it was. But again, this is at least the proper order of operations. We're seeing some form of cohesiveness between the president, the new AD hire, and then the dismissal of Bryan Harsin. So let's see where we go from here.
Yeah. Justin Crumpton, sorry, reassure me that Cohen with ties to UK is not going to go after Mark Stoops. I don't know who he's going to go after. You could do worse than Mark Stoops. I don't know that Mark Stoops is a good decision, but you could definitely do worse than Mark Stoops. He does not, for me, move the needle the way that we're talking about with recruiting, though.
Right.
So I am not a fan of Mark Stoops, but I'm not a fan of Mark Stoops for this job. I think Mark Stoops is great for Kentucky.
Right.
If Mark Stoops had the returns at Kentucky versus the expectations of his teams that he would have, if you swap the name of the jersey from Auburn to Kentucky, Mark Stoops probably would have been fired already.
Right. Yes. He wouldn't have made it this far in to get to a Will Levis, because he had some very mediocre seasons. So
yeah. So I don't have anything against Mark Stoops, Kentucky fans, whatever. If you're here, eavesdropping, Mark Stoops is great for you guys. That's about as much as I could give you on that one. Next we got here Joe Kyle. What's up, Joe, man? Appreciate y'all with the super chats, man. Keep those coming in. But Joe Kyle says, I think the timing stinks. We are in a huge mess now. Recruiting, retention, boosters run this program, and we are 36 and 35 in the SEC since Nick Marshall finished. We are definitely moving in the wrong direction as a program. I don't, and to your point, Joe Kyle, I don't know that the timing is great, but I don't know. And I've said this for weeks. When is a good time to fire a coach? Early recruiting, you need to make some momentum, because more and more of these kids are making their decisions about where they want to go to school, and they're signing during that early recruiting period. There's a lot of pressure between NIL and what a lot of the majors teams are doing. As far as, when I say major teams, the ones that are finishing at the top of the recruiting rankings perennially are doing to get kids into their program. You've got to make the push for that next tier of athletes super quickly. And with the turmoil that was around our football program, I don't know how you make up any ground in that other than making a change. I just don't know what you do in order to make up that ground quickly, other than saying we're committed to changing what we've seen. I know that you, as recruits who have come to Penn State, come and watched us play against LSU, came this weekend to see us get dismantled by Arkansas, can't be happy with what you saw. So you know what? We're making a commitment to move in a different direction. Stick with us if you've been with us already. That's going to be the big problem, and that's what I want to pivot to as far as the conversation, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this and this next comment, B. Will. Todd Jordan jumps in. This is what I was going to click on before, but I wanted to get the other one in first. This means, in all likelihood, Etheridge, Cadillac, and Hilliard are also gone. So thoughts about the direction in the program and the timing, as well as what this could possibly mean for some of our assistant coaches.
So the timing is, I think the timing was going to be the end of the year. I think the performance this past weekend forced everybody's hand. That's bad. It said that Roberts was evaluating it, but he had seen every game this season. He knows what football means down here. I think that performance, coupled with, you saw it, Ike talked about it, physically, the look of the players, to realize that, man, we spent 2 weeks and got handled like this. We suck.
I was in the midst of doing watch the film when this news broke. So I was recording it, and I was like, oh, wait, hold up. Film could wait. I'll get you guys, those of you who are patrons, I will get you watch the film stuff tomorrow. So I'm not going to spend a whole bunch more time today, because school's going to be out soon and my son's going to be here. I ain't going to have time to. Tomorrow, I'll watch the film to you if you even care, because Bryan Harsin isn't here anymore.
I really don't care now at all. I'm not
I will make that commitment that I will get that to you. But yeah, so what do you think that this means for these assistants?
For those assistants, I think it means it's completely dependent on who they get, because there is such a thing as an autonomous coach going, you're good at your job and you have roots here and ties to this university. You are great. And maybe I have a guy in your position. I'll find something else for him. You do what you do. You've been doing it great because I've seen y'all play. I've looked at the tape of your position players. I've looked at your recruiting. I can't do better than you for Auburn. You are here. That's possible. It's also possible that you get somebody like a Brian Kelly, who, mind you, he still retained certain coaches at LSU because he knew that their ties to the area and to the university were of monumental importance. It is not an absolute fact that just because we're getting a new coach, we're going to get all new assistants. That is not necessarily the case. Harsin kept Caddy. Harsin brought in Etheridge. So he was from outside the bubble, but those are people who got on staff, and Hilliard. So those are three people who, if you want to look at it, recruited well. Those was just positions that played well. And I don't know if there's a better position coach for those three positions than those three guys. So it's completely possible that, especially if it's somebody who's coming from a lesser resource program where they've got the guys that they could get, but maybe they don't have the best guys. Well, listen, those three position coaches, keep them. You can't do better than those. Not here. You can't do better than those guys here. So
they've done an amazing job. So, but this is the thing that I've been stressing to people all along when we have the conversations about fire the coach is if you truly want a new coach to have autonomy, you can't say to him, yeah, you can come in, but you got to keep these guys. You need to let him evaluate his own staff and decide who he wants to bring with him. Do I think that Zach Etheridge, Cadillac Williams, and Ike Hilliard deserve a shot to stay at Auburn? And do I like the job that they've done? I listen, if you listen to me talk, you know, I love the wide receiver core that we have right now. And I like the job that Ike Hilliard's done with them. I like his pedigree as a former NFL guy as well as coach to be a good position coach, but it's got to be a good mesh with the offensive coordinator, whoever that's going to be for the new head coach. And as far as system is concerned, it can't just be a recruiting play. So that's got to work. And they've got to work as far as personalities are concerned as well. That was one of the big things that you had when we had, what's the guy's name? Former quarterback for Auburn, currently works at Texas A&M. Damian Craig. That's one of the issues Damian Craig had. He had personality clashes here at Auburn. Damian Craig was known as a good recruiter. He didn't work with the staff well because his personality didn't jive. It's not just about being good at your job. It's about being good at your job and working well with the people that are around you. So hopefully whoever it is, they're going to mesh well with Etheridge, Williams, and Hilliard. But I don't know the answer to that today. Until we see who gets hired and what they have as far as who they want to bring in with them. So, yeah, that's a good question. And this is one thing I caution Auburn fans about, of like not getting too tied to the fact that, oh man, just keep, because and we're going to put out another one of those graphics about the defensive side. We did one for the offense where you get $15 and you get to build your own program. But we're going to put out one of those things about that. But like, it's not that simple where you just get to pick and choose the people that you want. Well, give me such and such as head coach and give me such and such as defensive coordinator. This person is offensive coordinator. Keep this person and this person. You got a super staff. And it's like, that's not really how that works, bro. Like, so anyway, let's get back into these comments. A lot of comments coming in. Again, we do prioritize the super chats, y'all. So I apologize. We do see there's over 1,000 people in here right now. Yeah, and so there's a lot of comments coming in. We are prioritizing the super chat. So apologies if we don't get to your comment as quickly as you'd like to. We're trying to get through these as quickly as we can. Ben Bloodworth says, genius move by the AU president to fire Harsin immediately after the AD hire to undercut negative reactions. Agreed 100%. Wolby jumps in and said, there is an up-and-coming coach at UCF. This is completely true. T. Will is doing a great job as defensive coordinator at UCF, so I hope he continues to do that. Lisa Daniel, Lance will not be a good hire. He wants the Alabama coach. I'm thinking that means Lance. Maybe Lane is what they were going for here.
Oh, yeah, I think he wants the head coaching job at Bama, I guess what they're saying.
Okay, gotcha. Rick Cazenay, says, do we think Zach is going to be the interim? Likely. His title was assistant head coach. Right. So he will likely be the interim coach. I don't think that has been announced yet, but all signs point to Zach Etheridge being the interim coach. Stu Dies a lot says, we need someone who wants to be here for the long haul and will have success. We don't need someone who will see Auburn as a stepping stone. I agree partially. We talked about this a little bit with the Deion thing. I can see someone who would be a short-term stopgap if that person is going to be committed to getting us moving quickly. Now, if we want someone for the long haul, that means we need to be we need to be committed to tearing it all down and starting over.
Right.
And so you kind of like, I don't know.
We're halfway there with the tear down, but go ahead.
But I'm saying, I don't know that there's a hire who can do both concurrently in the time frame that Auburn fans want to see it happen.
Right. So I'm glad you said that. If 3 to 5 years is your standard time, if you get somebody in here and it's ugly in year 1, I don't want to hear people all up in arms like, listen, we needed a reset because this year has gone as badly as anybody could have foreseen, and as most people did foresee outside of Auburn. So you have to be okay with whatever happens short term to build to the long term. We would have told you the same thing. We did tell you the same thing when Harsin was hired. Anybody who comes in here, I saw Oklahoma fans all up in arms about how bad they looked. I'm not judging Brett Venables by year 1. I'm not judging any head coach by year 1, especially with the transfer portal and how it just as easily tears down teams. If you want to slow build it, but you give your person a minute, and we have to be committed to that short term. Say, hey, you know what? As long as everybody looks like they're engaged, the players look like they're trying. We're filling gaps in the transfer portal, but we're missing early on some targets because we didn't have the full ramp up. Give them those 2 to 3 years. I just want people to be patient. Give the guy 2 to 3 years, whoever the guy is. And I think that there is a good hire to be made. I would like a long-term hire more than a short-term hire because I don't know. I don't think it does well if you have a personality that people are committing to. And that's really where Prime comes in. The commitment boost would be to the person, not the school.
Yeah.
It would be to the person and not the school. It can grow and be to the school, but short term, it would be to the person, not the school. The person leaves. Now we're left like, well, who are we going to get? Now we were the cool spot. We had the coolest head coach in the country. And now we are no longer the cool spot. Now we are the traditional spot, the sure thing, the thing that you can count on if you're an Auburn fan, if you're an Auburn student. But that's not what was being sold for 2 years. So now you have to find a new identity as a university for your football program. If you get the right head coach, you can do that and build for the long term. And that's why I'm always going to be a fan of the long term.
I see some people saying in here that Janoris Wilson just decommitted from Auburn. Listen, guys, this is part of it. You can't get rid of the coach and potentially the staff and not have decommitments in the class. This is something you just need to be braced for. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So listen, I hope we can maintain a lot of these guys, but it's just going to be unlikely that the class that as it is stands right now is going to fall apart until we get and just because he decommitted doesn't mean he can't recommit. These people want to know that they're going somewhere where the people who recruited them will still be there. And he's likely going to go whoever was second on his list is probably just jumped up now. So it is what it is. Walt Taylor jumps in here, says, here is why I like Kiffin. He knows how to work the portal. He can recruit old and new school style. He needs to bring a great DC, which he can get at Auburn, and he can win a championship at Auburn. Thoughts on this one?
He does know how to work the portal.
Mm-hmm.
He does. He can recruit. Sure. There is something to be said for Lane in an Auburn suit can do more than he has done up to this point. I mean, FAU, he was instantly where all the castaways from SEC programs started going quickly. We lost one or two. When they left here, I remember Kyle Davis, wide receiver. We got him in 2015, 16, something like that. Got kicked off the team and went to FAU. So he knows how to get the attention of people who are on their second leg. I don't know if he can just recruit straight up yet. I mean, Matt Corral transfer. This guy.
Listen, the vast majority of the guys that are contributing right now for Ole Miss came from the transfer portal.
Right. And I think there's some fool's gold there because you are very thin if you're only pulling in transfers. That's really the biggest problem. Now, because of what the transfer portal has become, it's not just grad transfers. You can get a guy who's got 3 years of eligibility left. And we heard it from Steve, who joined us when we played Ole Miss that week. He said, well, these are guys who he has now. These are 2 and 3 year guys. So next year would be the year that Ole Miss really looks to take the biggest step, supposedly. So I don't know if Lane waits around for that. If he's like, hey, well, I started something here and I'm really close, so just give me a minute. Maybe he does do that. I know Lane can do it in the transfer portal. I've watched him crap the bed in a couple of games with this 4th down nonsense. That's
the thing that I often caution fans about. Is there the outrage that they have about coaching decisions that are made, and then you say you want Lane Kiffin, and it's like Lane does a lot of this same stuff, y'all. He's a great offensive mind, great,
right.
Some of his in-game decisions, I'm like, what are we doing right now, Lane?
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's prone to lose a couple of them that he probably could have won had it not been for those decisions. But again, this is not a comparative analysis as to whether or not I think Lane Kiffin is a better hire than Coach Harsin. I'm just talking about who will be the best coach for Auburn today. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if that's Lane Kiffin.
Right.
But I wouldn't be totally against Lane Kiffin as the coach, right? Like, I'm not going to be sitting here like, man, I can't believe we hired Lane Kiffin. I'd be like, okay, let me see who his DC is going to be, and let me see what these recruiting classes going to look like.
Yeah, and
I know that offense going to put up points.
Yeah, I do think there are some immediate positives to Lane, that he solves a few problems, but I don't know if there's a better solution out there yet. I'm with you.
Next up, Blake Robinson jumps in and he says, War Damn Eagle, it was time. It sucks because I had hopes for Harsin and had his back in February. Unfortunately, reality set in for me in recent weeks. I'm on the Lane train. No disrespect to Prime. So let's talk about this conversation as well. Having Harsin's back, at least from my standpoint in February, was more so about how he was treated and not about how well I thought he was going to coach.
Right.
I didn't know how well this season was going to go. I was hopeful that we would have a good season, considering all of the things that I was hearing from both coaches, players, and administration. But I have no idea whatsoever how that was going to go. I hated how it was being pictured or being placed as far as the narrative that was being thrown out there about Coach Harsin. I just didn't think that was fair. I'm all for being fair to a person, and that's it. So I think that there's room to say I had his back in February. This needed to happen today in October, going into November. Both of those things can be true in the same universe, and I think that there's room for those things to be true. Just because he's our guy and he jumps in here for us on our podcast. If you guys have not checked out Mike Mack and the memes, and in the interim is Ike Mack and memes, our guy Auburn Memes jumps in to give a little bit of his reaction to what's going on right now in the Auburn situation. What's up, Memes? How's it going, man?
Oh man, it's rolling. I'm not in the studio, so can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you, man.
Coming through.
Awesome. Yeah, we're actually in Auburn. We're in Studio AU right now, so we don't have the Prime setup. We're streaming the audio here. We just got done having a Twitter space. We had about 500 people listening. This is hot right now. This is not how I expected to spend my Monday morning. I think the wild scenario here is today is Nick Saban's birthday, and tomorrow would have been Bryan Harsin's birthday.
Oh wow!
Kind of a weird little connection there. So anyway, yeah, we're rolling today. It's not, like I said, I don't know if anybody was expecting this for a Monday morning, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a surprise. I didn't have this on my bingo card. Bryan Harsin fired in the middle of the day on a Monday. Let's get back in here to the super chats. If I missed your comment again, I'm sorry. The comments are like flowing through here. So thank you for the super chat to you, as well as David Whitehead here. Dr. Doom jumps in and says, go get Prime, period, the end. There's a lot of people who are pro Coach Prime right now. Jonathan Harris call him Reverend Ike because he's preaching. Listen, man, it's not Sunday, but I can still go and give you the word if I need to. We have Joe Kyle jumping back in. What is the best guess on when we will hire a new coach? I don't think that we make a coaching decision until the end of the season, because a lot of the candidates that are being thrown out there currently are employed somewhere.
Right.
Like, even if it's someone like a Jeff Grimes, who's an offensive coordinator right now, he does have a job that he has to do, and his team is squarely in contention for to go to a bowl game. So you're not going to want to throw a wrench in that situation, or he's not going to want to throw a wrench in his own situation until then. So unless you're going to go hire Matt Rule, who currently is unemployed, I don't see how you make a coaching hire before the end of November. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think the day after the Iron Bowl, we start hearing whisperings. We probably hear some names floated that week, because there's no feelings to hurt at Auburn. If that's the case, you're not going to hurt any current coaching, anybody on our staff's feelings if you start floating new names. You hear those names pop up. I think within 3 days of the Iron Bowl ending, we have a new coach, because early signing day is right there. So you got to get some names in here. They've got to start talking to people quickly. Get on the phone with the recruits that we have in pocket. Keep them in pocket. Get on the phone with the recruits that we may have been in contention for and pull them over to our side. It's got to happen quick. I wouldn't be mad if it was like the last couple of days of the season, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think it happens within a couple of days of the Iron Bowl.
Any thought on that, Memes?
We were actually talking about this on the Twitter space we had, and I think the timing, and if you guys have already talked about this, we're not double dipping, my fault on that, but the timing too is like who these potential coaches are for what their postseason looks like. So which coaches are going to which bowls? That could be playing a factor into how interested in the timeline. And let's say you got a coach and they're playing at a bowl going into January. That might put a pretty big wrench into your timeline. Are they playing for a conference championship? So these are all big factors. Have y'all talked about the interim situation yet?
Yeah, we're guessing
more
Zach Etheridge.
Then Zach Etheridge is the likely person just because of what his title was. I think that would be interesting to see how that plays out if it's not him, though, because if he was the assistant head coach and he's not going to be the head coach in the interim afterwards, like, who else do you get as the head coach at that point in time? And then I think even more interesting than that is, does he keep Keesau handling play calling duties going forward? Or does he hand it to someone else? I don't know that anybody else is equipped to do it, but I do think that is an interesting thought. But what are your thoughts on that whole situation there, Memes?
We're talking about as far as interim coaches go.
Yeah.
Or is when the hire happens.
Well,
yeah, interim coach, and he already gave his opinion about when the hire happens, but about interim coach, yeah.
Yeah, so interim coaching, and this was kind of a theory that's been tossed around for a while. The other one was to Rock Bellatoni, just because he had been an interim coach for a while. And let's just say theoretically there's at least 3 or 4, 2, whatever. There's a handful of losses left on the schedule. I think the PR around Zach is very positive. I think if the next coach retains Zach Etheridge, Trevon, or Cadillac, there's going to be a 0% upset rate. Less than 1% will be fair to those wild Auburn fans out there who are just crazy. But I don't think you're going to see any pushback from that. So in theory, do you put Zach up there? He gets a few L's just that we're going to come naturally due to the state that we're in right now. And then people are just like, oh, it puts a little bad taste on the Zach situation, which is zero fault of his own if he is interim. Then the other theory there is, okay, what if you put Rock Bellatoni up there? Here's a guy who has actually been an interim coach before, has a lot of coaching experience, just he's older. He's been a lot of different places. He's been through these situations. Let Rock handle it. And then if there are some natural L's that occur, those kind of are scapegoated on him. And I guess what by the transitive property was kind of deemed as the Boise staff. And then the rest just happens as it happens. And then Zach's reputation is somewhat protected. That is just the theory of how it could go down. I don't know how much at the end of the day this really matters, but maybe they just don't want to put that necessarily on Zach's shoulders. I don't know. But that was one that had been talked about for a while. And just due to the fact that he has been an interim coach before, I think you can't maybe discredit the merit of that potentially happening. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it depends too. Let's just – go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I think that there's merit to that thing. I don't think it would be fair at all to pin Zach. I mean, listen, it is what it is. If you're looking at coaching careers and what their records are going to be, it's going to go on his record as a head coach, even if it's at interim. But it definitely would not be fair for that to be a negative thing. While we're just here, make sure that you guys are liking this video and you are subscribed on YouTube. If you're not a subscriber and you've been trying to comment, then you know that's the reason why you can't comment. So unfortunately, we didn't lock this down to a members only chat, because normally we would do stuff like that when we're talking about family business. But this is a big enough thing where we wanted everybody to just be able to come in and vent their frustrations, yell their elations, whatever it is. Oh, I rhymed there and didn't even mean to. But anyway, yeah, y'all have the opportunity to do all of that stuff, man. Yeah, I'm a rapper, so I got bars like that. Let's jump back in here to the chat. James Barnett says, fellas, in your opinion, what happens with our current players moving forward? This will affect them. Also, what about current commitments? We've talked a little bit about the commitment side. Let's talk about the players that are currently here and what we feel that is going to do to our current roster. I will start and say that I've heard rumor already that some players, if Bryan Harsin was let go, would immediately want to transfer. And I'm not going to name any names because I'm going to let those players talk about their own fate. But I did hear about some names that Auburn fans were excited about for the future would be transferring if Bryan Harsin were let go. That's never a reason to keep a coach unless that number is like 60. But it is a possibility that we see some names enter the transfer portal because either the head coach that they liked or the position coach that they liked will no longer be at the school here. Thoughts about what this will do to the current roster?
You know what? One of the first things I thought about was when everything happened in February, we still picked up recruits between then and August or whenever we got our last recruit, September. Even though people did not like Bryan Harsin, the recruiter, he was getting people to recruit to Auburn University. It was not the high volume of people, but we've got a lot of really good players that other people want recruited to Auburn University, committed right now, not signed, of course, but committed. People like what Harsin was selling. The product was not good. He couldn't sell that product. So you understand why we didn't have more recruits already. We had heard rumors that we were going to get more recruits. We were going to get a couple of more flips because the product was going to be the thing that tipped them over the top, along with NIL getting going, which is it has started to. But he was a football coach and an earnest football coach, maybe not the most likable if you want to go by what everybody thought of how he presented, but that's not the most important thing with the football coach. We make these comparisons all the time. There's a lot of football coaches that nobody likes, but they win, so who cares? People committed to Bryan Harsin in the same way that a lot of people commit to the coach that they're playing for when they commit. Whoever's there, all the departures from 2020 committed to Gus Malzahn. Just about all of them. Wait, I'll have to check that. I believe all of the departures from 2020 initially committed to Gus Malzahn. So if the guy that you talk to that convinced you to come isn't here, what are you sticking around for? This was going to happen. And yes, there could be some attrition in the commitment ranks and also currently on the roster because people actually bought what Harsin was selling as far as play and development and improving and professionalism. So yeah, it's possible that could happen. Now, I hope it's not the people that I'm looking forward to playing for, because as much as the fan base hates the coach, the players didn't hate the coach. They may have hated how things were going. They may have hated strategically some things. I don't think players hated Bryan Harsin. So
yeah, I think there's a mixed bag. I don't think any players hated Bryan Harsin. I think that they hated some things that were happening around the program and some of the I hate is maybe the wrong word. Strongly disliked is definitely accurate as far as what some players felt about their position coach and how things were being done strategically for whatever position it was that they were having, whether it's the defensive unit, offensive unit, whatever. I think the decision making around and listen, I lamented this heavily yesterday on the program about this. And I've been talking about this honestly for weeks. As much as people want to say that the War Report is our Harsin apologist channel, you guys really don't listen to the critiques that we have for this coaching staff. Like I can separate my ideas around fair treatment for a person with the performance that they have at the program. Those are definitely two separate things, and I treat them separately. But yeah, I think that a lot of players did love Coach Bryan Harsin. I think some of them didn't, and so we'll see kind of where that parses out going forward. But any thoughts, memes on current player movement? Your audio went out for some reason there, memes.
I'm back. I think I'm back. I think I was muted for a second. I've been having.
There we go.
Yeah, we're streaming through Hotspot right now, so bear with the slight technical difficulties. The studio AU does not have all the bells and whistles as the home front, but we're reporting live from Ground Zero, so we're in Auburn. But
yeah, we got
so
two guys
here,
on the street. That's right. Both of you guys are in Auburn right now.
I know.
Giving us the scoop from live. They can hear the chanting from the streets as to whether or not it's pitchforks or screams of elation. Is what everyone wants to know, are people rolling Toomer's Corner right now in celebration?
You know what? There's a permanent Toomer's Corner camera that you can. Let me find it. That's hilarious.
I checked it as of 15 minutes ago. There weren't. So
okay,
yeah. Now say, Beal, if you can check it again to see if we got any more update on that. But I was, because it was funny. Some people were making jokes about that on Twitter. And it's like, oh, they're going to start rolling tumors. And one person was just like, if I catch anybody rolling tumors, I'm going to throw them on a bus and send them straight to Tuscaloosa. And I was like, all right, guys, like emotions are hot right now. But to the question about the players moving forward, I think this is a cancel out type situation. You've got a deal where you're naturally going to lose a guy that you were really looking forward to seeing or who is making an impact on the team. And you're going to probably get some guys who you'd probably safely argue otherwise that they weren't going to come. This is a natural thing with college football. I mean, every year you see it happen, even when you do have the same coach and staff. I think you see it even more extreme. Maybe you have guys that declare to go pro that maybe could have potentially stayed. I like to think of kind of the situation of like Anthony Schwartz and or Seth Williams for when Gus left. I'm thoroughly convinced that one, if not both, may have stayed had Gus stayed. But will we know? We don't. It's just theories unless they come out and confirm it. I think you're going to have a similar situation here. I think there's going to be possibly a transfer that's really just going to be a major gut punch. But I think once it's all said and done, whoever comes in is going to snag some recruits and some transfers that probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. We don't know. I would just tell everybody, be prepared for a lot of good, be prepared for a lot of bad, and hopefully that with the new staff doing what they need to do, that Auburn will be on the top side of that. But to say this is going to be painless across the board, especially with player retention, that's just not how it works.
Listen, this happened at Tennessee, right? When Coach Heupel was brought in after Coach Pruitt was let go, they had a huge exodus of players, and Coach Heupel got the ship right. He was able to find some guys in the transfer portal. He was able to get some recruits in. He already had a stable of guys that were going to remain, and he was able to get it together up there. So change is going to have to happen, and it's going to be some people that you like. It's going to be some people that you didn't like, didn't know, and it's going to feel awful. And people are going to say, oh, look, he's ruining our program because this person left and this person left. But ruining the program, I think, is kind of that's a little bit too much of a surface evaluation of what's been happening right now. But we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of days, but just expect it to happen. Jumping back in here to the chats, because there are a lot of chats, guys. Again, I'm trying to get through these as quickly as I can. Joseph Creech says, congrats to Harsin on the greatest financial investment of his life. Potential buyouts alone may be a huge factor in us pulling a top name. Listen, it's a lot of money to have to put up out the door, and it's a lot of money to buy out some of these people like Lane Kiffin out of their contracts to bring them in the door. So there's a lot of money that people are talking about kind of casually, like, oh, like we're talking about $15 million for Harsin, and we're talking about somewhere in the range of $50 million to buy Lane Kiffin out of his contract, if not more. That's just me doing. I've run the numbers on a couple of people that have been floated around over the last couple of weeks, and I get confused on where those numbers land. But it's a lot of money.
I think Lane Kiffin's buyout's lower. I want to say it was maybe in the neighborhood of, I want to say somewhere between maybe like 12 to 18 million.
Is that it? Wow, they had some immaculate offset language in Kiffin's contract then, because he's still got a lot of years left.
Yeah, I think the buyout was a lot less than what he was actually getting paid. I mean, it's still on the let's just say that's on the lower end of that. I mean, that still puts Auburn in the neighborhood of $30 million to get a coach out, bring a coach in, and then you've got to beat the salary. So I mean, Lane Kiffin's already making somewhere in the neighborhood of $7.5 million. You don't pull a Derek Mason and just take a pay cut or a lateral pay. If you're going to if you're going to do all that hugabaloo, you're going to get a little bit more money. So what do you pay him? $8 million, $9 million, $10 million? Right. I mean, that's a lot of, to me, if you're paying a coach in that neighborhood that doesn't have a national championship, that's a really high risk type of situation. Even with coaches that do have national championships, Texas A&M, we can laugh at them all day long. That's a lot of money to be tying up. So if the next guy doesn't work, I mean, and you're looking at the neighborhood of like, geez, we're looking at 50, 60, 70, $80 million. I know we're getting these big TV contracts, but there's got to be a breaking point for this.
Right.
That's what they got to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot of considerations here besides just who we think is the best coach. It's got to be a financial decision that makes sense for the people who have to cut the checks, and I am not one of those people. Don L jumps in. This will be our second early signing period in 3 years that is down the drain. I don't know that we're there yet as far as it being down the drain, but it's an uphill battle trying to figure out how to hold this recruiting class together and having the incentive of people on the current staff to try to be the ones that pull that together. Like if you're on this current staff and you don't know if you're going to be retained, you're recruiting a bunch of guys, but do you want them to sign during the early period, or do you want to say, hey, commit to us and wait until the late signing period to do that? And if I'm gone, I'll just try to come get you from where I'm at. Right. Like, I don't know what you do if you're in that scenario. If you're somebody like a Rock Bellantoni, who isn't one of the names that people are throwing out here of like, oh, they're an Auburn legacy, they have to be retained.
Right.
If you are, I mean, even an Ike Hilliard, right? Like, he's not an Auburn guy. People love the job that he's done, but he's not an Auburn guy. Like, what true incentive does he have to go out there and work super hard on the recruiting trail to go get wide receiver recruits to come in, or even try to convince the guys that are currently in here not to jump in the portal? He doesn't have any guarantee of what his next job is going to be. So does he sit here and stump for Auburn really hard? I don't know the answer to that. I hope that he would, but I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
I agree with you that's the risk of getting rid of everybody really quickly. But also, it's fair to recruits to get rid of the coach early, so you know that things might not be what you sign on to if you sign early. The worst thing to do would be to let somebody sign and you're like, hey, well, everybody's going to be here, or keep the head coach through, and then you go, got it, okay, X. Now, new coach, new staff, go for a regular signing day and get us some more guys. I think that's the worst way you can do it. Now, all those players could essentially just use their transfer, but even then, it's kind of scummy to use their one get out of jail free card because you weren't being honest with them. This is the most honest thing to do, so recruits have time. Whatever avenues there are for players to talk to prospective players about NIL and what it can do for them, I think the one benefit from this change early is that you get the assistant coaches who are still in place, the interim head coach can actually create some positivity in the locker room, because I think we saw the beginning of a downturn of morale, Arkansas. That was the beginning of a downward spiral, and that's why this moment of firing Bryan Harsin makes sense, because we can't let it go where it's about to go. No, that was it. If they were fighting hard, we were in some close games, even if against teams we could have beaten, we thought we had the horses to compete against, we didn't do it. We got embarrassed. We got embarrassed at home. The players looked defeated. The coaches looked defeated. This is the time. Now, let them at least save the morale. Let them save the spirits of the players, because the players do recruiting just as much as the coaches do. The players come here, the prospective recruits come here, and they get paired up with the player that's here. That player like, man, I'm about to get out of here, man. I don't know what to tell you. Look, go down there. They got some decent food. The girls all right. I'm about to get out of here. I'm going so and so. You want me to talk to where I'm going? That's what you don't want to happen. And if we had continued along that path after the piss poor effort we saw this past weekend, we could have got there. So early signing day maybe has a chance. The question is, are the recruits that had committed on board with the school, or are they on board with the staff? We don't know that.
Janoris Wilson clearly was like, I don't know what's going on down there. I'm out. But you have guys like Braden Joyner, who has been stumping for Auburn since the moment that he committed here. Is he just elated to be an Auburn commit, or was he really high on someone on this staff that had him? Clay Whedon, he was committed to come over here in the transfer portal. Is he going, or he was the former Michigan State guy? Is he still going to be coming? There's a lot of what ifs out here. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of that stuff. Did you have anything you want to say about that one, Means, before we move on to some more comments?
No, I was just say just a really quick thing to add on to the early signing day debacle. I mean, I think that just kind of goes to show with what happened with COVID and a coaching change, just all these other things that were going on. I mean, there's been a lot of bad luck with this in the last few years, and consistency helps level that out, and that's what they got to get to. And as Alan Green famously said with the firing of Gus, there was no hope. And I feel like people would safely say there's less hope now than there was back then. And I think you've got to get some of that, back. Did you guys talk about Norris Wilson decommitting already?
Yeah,
okay.
Somebody actually super chatted that here, just to bring it up again. Janoris Wilson, our only tackle, has now decommitted. He did 3-star commit. Janoris Wilson said with everything that's going on down there, he's decommitting from Auburn right now. So again, there's just got to be some stability happening before recruits are going to want to be here. And that's just the reality of what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. War Eagle 0392 says, I'm generally not a pro fire midseason. I was a firm believer in making Harsin wear that losing record for his career forever. But when he's trying to burn players' red shirts with 1:30 left, I'm done. There's been a lot of people saying that this was the case. As far as now, it's factual that someone's red shirt got burnt Saturday. But the question is, was he malicious in attempting to do that? Was he just unaware of what's happening? There are so many questions I have about how player rotations happen, because what you're, I guess you're hoping that Coach Harsin is aware of that when somebody checks into the game. He's like, oh, wait a minute. No, don't check such and such in. He's about to red shirt, pull him back out. Like, that's got to be something that everybody is aware of, I guess. I just don't know what to even think about that. And if that is true, that he was maliciously just trying to take someone's eligibility away, he's like, well, I ain't going to be here. Screw your eligibility. That is a horrible thing. But anybody have any thoughts on that? Because that's been getting stuff like this floats around and you hear people say it. And even if someone, it's clear that their eligibility was gone as far as a red shirt is concerned, that does also not mean that that was a malicious intent by anybody on the staff. But anyway, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because I remember, didn't Gus and company burn Asa Martin's red shirt inadvertently that year? I mean, I'm sure it was an accident. It's still a terrible oversight. I need to know if it was intentional before we throw. Like, that's what I want to know. Was it intentional? It was either accidental and that makes it a clown show, or it was intentional and that makes it
malicious.
Fireable. Yeah. So, but I don't know what it was. If we're talking about somebody who was redshirting here, then that's somebody who probably wasn't playing. And I think our focus is going to be, I'm glad we have every player that we have that they want to be here. But if you don't want to be here, then they're going to go anyway. If they don't want to be here, they're going to leave. I'm worried about the people who want to be here, who want to stay, and who want to come here, who are prospective players who, I'm looking at some of the reactions now from the players as different sites, again, some of the comments. I'm interested in seeing who wants to be here no matter what, and who may have committed to the coach, because I'm seeing some people were really big on Bryan Harsin. So we'll see.
Let's see. Mr. Tyrone jumps in and says he wants he's asking Urban Meyer.
No.
An emphatic no from B. Will on Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer is a loser who had a plethora of talent. If you're gonna have
talent, right? Like, that's good, right?
Wait. This is the difference, though. When he didn't have the talent in Florida, when he had a legendary college football coach leave, now he's got heart problems. Ohio State, right? Okay, so you get, and it's not just like an Ohio State stacked team that is usually an Ohio State, because they're stacked every year. That Ohio State team in 2014 was otherworldly stacked. It's like the same 4 or 5-star recruiting you do, except more of them turned out to be studs than you thought. It's like, oh, wow, you NFL pro, NFL pro, NFL pro, NFL pro. Okay, wow, we really got something here. Now, you don't know that. You're just recruiting them in case one of them doesn't work out. You got some backups. Otherworldly, and he won. How many years was Urban Meyer a head coach? And how many times did he win a national championship? At Ohio State, excuse me. Ohio State with never had less talent than anybody he played in the Big 12. So 13 games, he out-talented everybody.
Big 10.
I'm sorry. 13 games, he out-talented every team on his schedule and lost with the core of that national championship team to a mid-Michigan State team the next year. What are you doing? I mean, stop talking about it. Went to the NFL and got proven to be the clown show that we thought he was, not because he couldn't win on that level, but all of the stuff that the players hated Urban Meyer, hated him. They thought he was a clown. No, don't bring him here. Do not bring him here. He about to be the new Jimbo.
B. Will, not a fan of Urban Meyer as a hire. Noted. David Whitehead, could we get the Dallas Cowboys DC or try to get Joe Brady? I don't even know who the defensive coordinator is right now for the Dallas Cowboys.
Dan Quinn, former Atlanta Falcon head coach.
I mean, I don't know Dan Quinn as a college. Listen, college coaches, and like, there's just different. It's a different. Like, I get that college is going in the direction of what the NFL feels like, as far as semi-pro is what people are calling it now with the transfer portal and NIL. It's still a different beast to be a college head coach than what it is to be an NFL coach. You might be great with the X's and O's and all. It's different, man. it's a different animal to be a college coach mainly because of the recruiting piece. The recruiting piece is hard. And then you have staff attrition at a much higher level in your key places as far as offensive and defensive coordinator, because they're getting hired away at an alarming rate, especially to go to the NFL, just because you can't pay them the same kind of salaries that you would in college. And so you have it's a difficulty to be able to and that's why what Nick Saban has done is so impressive, because he's been able to sustain success over a long period of time with all the difficulty, because name another coach that's done that. Now, he's had all of the resources, but you talk about resources. Texas A&M got resources. Texas got resources. Michigan got resources. Oklahoma got resources. None of them have done with their resources what Nick Saban has done with his.
Right.
It's hard to do. Kirby Smart's on the path to doing that, but it's just difficult to have sustained year in and year out national title contention success, even with a lot of resources. So being a head coach in college football is just way different, right? And then the expectations you see right now, like you can be the best X's and O's guy in the world, but you're bad at all of this other management stuff that's going to take to be kind of an aficionado at the college level, and it just won't work. I don't know if Dan Quinn is that guy, is my point in that. I'm not saying he isn't. Right. I'm just saying I don't know that he is. Joe Brady is another one of those where I don't know. He was great Dan Quinn's time as a head coach, not particularly great, right? In Atlanta, he was just kind of okay, right? Joe Brady's never been a head coach. So how do you know how Joe Brady will do as a head coach? You don't know the answer to that. Will they have good X's and O's, good schemes? Maybe. Are they going to have the personnel? Maybe, right? Like, I don't know. So I don't really have a definitive yes or no for either of those guys. Any thoughts on that before I move to the next one? All right. A-Mac jumps in. Never good for someone to lose their job, and I wish Harsin the best. Now I believe Luke Fickell will do well at Auburn. Thoughts on Luke Fickell?
I will hear arguments regarding Luke Fickell as a potential head coaching candidate for Auburn University. I will hear these arguments. Let the debates begin. He has definitely built Cincinnati up from when Tuberville was in his, who cares, I'm collecting the check phase at the end of his career. And he burned it down. Not really, but kind of. Luke Fickell went in there. He didn't have a lot to work with. He wasn't even like the hottest recruiter, because that's not what he did at Ohio State. He was just a really good defensive coach. He built him up. I mean, a playoff berth is better than we've had here. I know the competition isn't great. I get it. It's not great. But what you do by giving a coach who at least knows how to do the job access to facilities and recruiting and means is you see if he can be more than just a good coach, if he can be a great one. Now, it's a gamble. It's a gamble like any other, but you're talking about somebody who at least has been in the same spot for long enough, has improved the longer he's been there. I like those things. So I'm for that as a possibility.
Got anything to add on that, Memes?
Yeah, I think you're going to have the same. If it goes good, it goes good. If it goes bad, it's going to be the same kind of stuff. You got an outsider. You got a guy who didn't have the SEC connections, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't know how to recruit the South. I mean, you can potentially have some of the same arguments that you had with Harsin, because I mean, Fickell and Harsin were both winners at their respective schools, and then you just that job wasn't as big, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like if that's the argument you had with Harsin and you support this hire, then that's confusing to me. That's really all I've got on it.
Yeah. We are going to get back to these comments here in just a second, but if you guys didn't know, we are talking about, of course, the dismissal of Coach Bryan Harsin. We're giving away a shirt today, the He Gone shirt. This is just a tradition that we have here when somebody leaves. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments. We're going to do that giveaway here in about 10 minutes. So you guys have 10 more minutes to get in on this before I start pulling names. But hashtag get your weight up in the comments to be able to be a part of this giveaway of the He Gone t-shirt. And we'll do that here again in just about 10 minutes. Let's get back into some of these comments, though, because there's still plenty of them. We appreciate you guys being in here with us. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll love to see you guys on Wednesday when we talk about the upcoming matchup against Mississippi State. But next here, we got Christian Crawford, who said, did y'all see College Dang Day last week? Deion isn't going anywhere. Black folks will despise him for the following the money. He will entertain for strategic purposes, but I don't think he's leaving. Listen, he's committed to the job that he's done with these HBCUs and trying to get them more notoriety. But he also said in a 60 Minutes interview that he'd be a fool not to entertain the possibility, more so for the coaches that are on his staff, which brings into question how many people is he trying to bring up with him from the HBCU ranks, right, to have an opportunity to get paid for real to do what they love to do at coaching. But any thoughts on this comment?
Yeah, so I think Deion's making less than $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So Deion doesn't need the money. He's got retirement from 2 major sports that he's getting paid, along with whatever investments he's made. His kids are probably about to be rich because I think Shador's playing well right now. He doesn't need the money. And also, it's a very, very hard job. Deion, like, something's wrong with, I think it's his hip that's hurt. So he's got like a scooter on the sidelines. Like, Deion's not.
He had a surgery on one of his toes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
His body is broke. I wonder if he wants to hit the road to do what this job takes to do. It's a very difficult job. I know he's been doing that, but I think it gets ratcheted up another level at Auburn. Does he want to expend that energy just for his guys to get paid? I mean, it will be admirable.
How much
do
you think Nick Saban hits the road?
Now? I mean, he could probably just send a text and do the same thing, that the same effect is showing up in person. I don't think he hits it as much as he used to 10 years ago, but I don't know.
And the only reason I say that is, do you think Deion has enough name recognition and cachet that he might not have to be on the road a lot as long as he puts a good staff together? He just has to close the deal. That's
true. I think that's probably a lot of what we would see, or what he could get away with doing. Maybe he does more up front. I don't know, but Deion. There would be some backlash against Deion from Black people.
Especially 1,000%. They already mad at him right now at the HBCU ranks that they think he's turning the SWAC into a sideshow as opposed to whatever. So
right, if he ain't SWAC,
if he left, they definitely would be jumping down his throat 100%.
Yeah. And so that's why I still don't really think he's up for grabs necessarily. He said, I have to entertain it. He didn't say I'm definitely leaving. He didn't say I'm definitely leaving for Power 5. He said, I have to entertain it. Mm-hmm. And I think that got everybody excited, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think Deion is seriously considering taking a job at the Power 5 level, a huge job, where football is the most important thing that happens on campus. That it drives the economy of the city. Like that's something that's different from Jackson State and different from most HBCUs. Auburn is an economy. Auburn football, any major SEC program is an economy. It drives other sports. It drives the city. It drives notoriety. It drives recruitment, like for students to come here and get money for the student base that's here. And those stakes aren't there for HBCU, but it is there for Auburn. I don't know if Deion's up for all that. I don't know.
Any thoughts on that, Memes?
Yeah, I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, I think no matter which coach, and I think for Deion for sure, there's just so much. I mean, there's so many spotlights on him. No matter what happens, I mean, that's just part of being. That's part of being famous. Let's be honest. No matter what you do, it's going to be criticized. If you stay, I think people hit the nail on the head. He's not SWAC, this, that, or another. If you go, you're chasing the money. You're a sellout. So I mean, it sucks when you're in those positions to where, well, no matter what I do, there's going to be people who are upset, and that kind of comes with it. In the end of the day, he's got to do what's right for him, what's right for his family, what's right for his career, and that ball's going to be on him, and that's just part of it. You got to tune out what the negativity and what the haters say, and it sucks.
I mean, ultimately, I think Deion's going to make the best decision for whatever he thinks is the best for not just his future but his legacy, because I think he's very concerned about his legacy that he leaves behind. So we'll see. Lawrence Robinson jumps back in. Facts on the narrative, Ike. I was hopeful, but a lot of us think that even if you question Harsin's ability to control what you can control, I don't think he did that well. And this is exactly what I was saying. Again, if you only listen to me say, hey, these are the things that I feel like Harsin got screwed on, you miss me saying things like, I don't know that Harsin did a great job of mitigating the other factors that he had 100% control over. Right. And I think he could have done a better job in those areas. If you and that was a thing that he even said himself. I can only control what I can control. I don't think he controlled what he had fully within his grasp very well. There were some things that I think that could have been done a lot better during this Bryan Harsin tenure that ultimately, you know, when things are out of your control and they're going poorly, and the things that are in your control are going poorly, what do you have left? Like, what are we doing here?
Right. With what he had control of, he didn't do a good enough job of it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mr. Tyrone says, give me Urban Meyer. We've already gone down the Urban Meyer train. We'll continue here.
Sorry,
and
Tyrone.
Philip Coleman says, $15 million gift for Harsin. Hell of a gift to receive. Hey, listen, he earned it. Yeah. So it's not really a gift. They negotiated the contract beforehand, and he came in and he did his job for the time that he was here. So I get everybody's like, I'm not crying any tears over somebody who's got $15 million. That didn't mean that he wanted this to be the outcome, guys. Like, I get it. You know, cynicism aside, I don't think Coach Bryan Harsin wanted to be fired today. So Cody Hughes, what do you think about possibly Neil Brown at West Virginia? Look what he did at Troy. Any thoughts on Neil Brown?
LOL.
I don't have any thoughts on Neil Brown because I don't know why. I don't know anything about him, what Troy was when he was there, or what West Virginia has done. They're okay this year, but people's perception of a job that a coach did largely has to do with, did you get the right players in the right spots? That's it. We're making a lot about, he's a great coach or a bad coach. If Josh Heupel has Joe Milton instead of Hendon Hooker, we're not talking about Josh Heupel or Tennessee, and they're not that good. They're good, but they're not great. Best case. He got the right guy, though. That's a credit to him. But let's not make his entire coaching tenure and his evaluation about having to get the one right guy. I would have told you after 2014 that Gus was the right guy. And I was telling people, Bama fans, Auburn fans, Gus was the right guy. Look what we just did. Nick Marshall. Nick Marshall was almost the entirety of the fluid offense that Gus Malzahn ran, and we ran it 1 year outside of that. 8 years, one guy was the bulk of the offensive success, and other than that, they put it together for 2017, and it wasn't as good as 2013 or 14 with Marshall. He got the guy, though. He got the guy that he could build the program's identity on, and it worked. We were Auburn fast for like 6 years. Were we actually Auburn fast later? Not really. But that's what you got to do. You got to get the right guy. I don't know if Neil Brown has the right guy right now. He might be a great coach, but he hasn't had the right guy yet. So what happens? I don't know. Because he hasn't had the right guy to put the program over the top and have everything looking good. He needs to find that guy.
Yeah. Memes camera went off here. I'll jump him off of here. Let's see. A. Francis Court says Deion is not a proven coach. Deion hasn't coached any against one team that there was even a comparable talent. He's only coached one big game and lost to a grossly undersized, less talented South Carolina State team.
I remember that. I mean, football still ain't easy.
Yeah.
Football still ain't easy.
Having all the talent in the world does not guarantee you victories. Hello, Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
Ben Bloodworth says, imagine beating Jimbo with an interim head coach.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that. Oh my God. That would be magnificent. Oh my God.
Oh man. Yeah, that would be comedy for sure. I would definitely I would enjoy coming onto that Sunday show just so B Will could revel about that one. Renaissance Man jumps in. Thoughts on Muschamp? I was against the idea, but after talking with a friend, I'm warming up to it. I think his style fits Auburn. He recruited two of the best players in the last decade, C, D, and JH. So that is
Carlton Davis and JH. JH?
I don't know who JH is, honestly.
I don't know who JH is. Wait, who did we recruit in 2015? Coward did not work. We got pass rusher. He left in 2017. He had a really big year. Who was our best pass rusher in 2017? Why can't I think of his name
Carl
right now?
Lawson.
Carl Lawson.
Talking about Sensei Mud?
Yeah. Holland. That's what we mean. Jeff Holland. Yeah. That was all 2015 class.
Gotcha, Jeff Holland.
I mean, he did. Now listen, Muschamp did. I think the defense would be humming with Muschamp.
Mm-hmm. But listen, what has Muschamp done as a head coach that gives people confidence in him?
Exactly.
His stops at Florida and South Carolina have both been disastrous.
Couldn't find the right OC and could
never get an offense, specifically quarterback. So
Right.
I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know about that one, cuz.
Yeah.
Let's see. Again, I am trying to get through these super chats as quickly as I can. Coach Anderson says maybe the athletes respond well. Cloud has been removed. Maybe the young bucks get some mileage on the tires. Just go play ball and control what you can control. I mean, listen, if what we're hearing about the red shirt situation is true, players don't want to get mileage on the tires. They want a red shirt, right? So I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Chris Brown jumps in with a super chat. I'm sure I missed your actual comment, but I apologize for that. Andrew Jacobs, I'll get memes jumping back in here. Do y'all think we get Landon and AD, etc., back out of the transfer portal now? I think this has a lot to do with who we hire, but Gobi.
Yeah. I think that this depends on who we hire, but I don't think the reason people are redshirting was because they dislike the coach. I think they redshirted because we suck, and they don't want to burn eligibility to play for a bad team that wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
Because I think if we're good and they're not playing, then you stick around. You don't know what's going to happen, man. You got the bowl game. If you're really, really good, you get in the playoff. You got a playoff. You're going to get all this merch. You're going to get to take some trips with your team. There's a lot to be around for, and you at least have confidence that things are going to go the right direction. There's going to be some continuity next year, so you'll be in line for some stuff next year. But when you take all that off the table and you lose, players don't want to play. So I think that's why people have jumped in the portal, because we're losing. We're a bad team. Do we get those two players back? Listen, man, it's completely possible that if you get the right hire, that we are suddenly in play for players who may have a higher ceiling than Landon King or AD Diamond, and then you.
Here's the thing: it's not their decision at this point in time either. Once you go into the portal, you don't get to decide. Like, you can remove your name from the portal, I guess, because you're technically still at Auburn, which I think that they're going to have to figure out how to change that and not allow guys to just jump in and jump back out of the portal. While, there's just a lot of things around the transfer portal rules that I think are going to be changing coming up because of situations like this. Because when you think about Landon King, AD, and et cetera, they still had access to the facility. They could come in and do what they want to, and they could have been on somebody else's team next year, right? Like, you don't, if you leave my team, and this is the petty. Y'all know, if y'all watch the show, y'all know I got a lot of petty in my soul. If you leave my team, leave my building too.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be on scholarship, nothing. Like, I don't like nothing. If you decided, hey, I don't think I want to stick around here, good luck to you. Thank you for your services. Because listen, if I decided, it's people are treating, if you want to treat it like employment, people are treating this like it's employment. It's like, it's a transfer portal is almost like putting your resume out there. And yeah, I'm gonna keep my job, but I'm gonna go do some job hunting. But it shouldn't be like that, in my opinion. It should be,
I agree,
once you put your resume in. And honestly, there's a lot of employers that are like this, like, oh, you putting your resume out there? Great, you're looking for a new job. You don't need this one.
Right.
I got a few things I want to jump on while I had to jump off real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna combine the Neil Brown and the Muschamp comments into one real fast.
Okay.
Big thing Auburn can't do, if they're looking at coaches that were either recent failed head coaches or coaches that other schools are looking to push out the door. And I know some West Virginia people, they would not be sad if Neil Brown left. I think they really think that Neil Brown left a lot to be desired there, especially what they thought was going to be really good with JT Daniels, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I know everybody talks about his time at Troy, but also remember, Cornelius Williams was at Troy with Neil Brown. That didn't work out very well at the wide receiver coach. He didn't make it past, 5-6 games last season? So just because somebody did well at a local school at that level does not necessarily going to translate up here. We've seen that already. I wouldn't fall for that farce. And Muschamp, he's had 0 success as a head coach. He's failed already twice at 2 SEC schools. I don't know why people think it's going to be any different this go round. He was a great coordinator. He's a good coordinator at Auburn twice. That is not the move to make unless he proves that he can just do it at this level. And Auburn does not need to be the experimental job, especially the situation they're in. I don't buy that. I just don't buy that at all. So that's all I had on. I just want to chime in on that one. I'll jump off for a second.
Cool. All good. All good. Let's see here again. I said we were going to go and pull. If you guys didn't know, we're giving away this He Gone t-shirt. You got time while I'm fidgeting here to put in your hashtag, get your weight up. But as soon as I come back to this other screen, I'm hitting the button to pull to give away this shirt. But we're going to go ahead and get to that today. The winner of the He Gone shirt in honor of our guy, Bryan Harsin, no longer being employed with Auburn University. Happy trails to him. And Grunt USMC is the winner of that shirt. Congratulations to you. You have to be present, though, in order to claim it. So you guys be looking out in the chat and the comments to let us know if he's still here or if he gone as well. But we will get back into these comments while we wait on that. I Am Hop says that it is prime time. So we need to see what's going on with that. I have a call coming in, so B will take over for me real quick.
All right. So let me go to where we left off at. I hear it. Everybody wants prime. Want to talk prime? I want y'all to get y'all hopes down just a little bit. You tamp those hopes down a little bit. I don't want y'all to be all upset if it's not prime. But sure, I mean, it's possibility, you know what I'm saying? So my forehead again somehow. Hurry up and name Grant Lloyd head coach. Let me see about the blog feature here. No. Memes, do you even want to dignify this with a response?
Man, that's $2 well spent right there on Super Chat. man.
If prime comes, those athletic commercials are going to hit a little different. That's the first thing
I tweeted that yesterday.
Yeah,
I tweeted that yesterday.
Oh man, that becomes a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see if they that got 37 retweets. And it's gonna be really interesting to see would they lean into that, or would one of the two of them dip out? Would they be on commercials together still? I mean, that would be really funny. I mean, I think you got to lean into it if you're a producer. I mean, let's be real. Both Saban and Deion are making a little bit of adult NIL money from that. So why turn down making commercials? And I think you got to lean into it and just have fun with it in the commercials. And I think that'd be really good content for them. So that the stories write themselves when it comes to that.
Yeah, for sure. I see we'll be right here saying that celebratory, the Harsin era is over. Hey, it is over. Whether you were an end of the season decision type person or a mid-season fire him now type person, it's over. It is over. Moving on. We got Rowley. Pete Carroll is stinking it up in Seattle. Maybe they're actually doing really good in Seattle right now. He got what is essentially everybody had billed as a backup quarterback playing just as good or better than Russell Wilson was playing at Seattle. And they just beat the 6-1 New York Giants yesterday. I think Pete Carroll is good. I don't think he would trouble. Pete Carroll was always an NFL coach. I think the USC job was an exception for him, actually, because he was at the Patriots before Bill Belichick got the job, got fired, went to college, collected himself at USC, and then came back and has had success since then. So I don't think he jumps. I don't know. What do you think, Memes?
Yeah, I just don't think that's the man. If you got a job in the NFL, and let's be real, Pete Carroll ain't the youngest. He's not the youngest in the world anymore. I think if he hangs it up, why not retire? Yeah, Pete Carroll is 71 years old. I don't think he's coaching after Seattle. I think he's gonna hang his hat up and go. Whether he's got a lake house, mountain chalet, he's gonna just enjoy living life.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be bothered with the demands of a college job. Even I think they're probably more demanding than them pro jobs at this point. But yeah, They talk about recruiting like it's the nether realm. Pro coaches do, because it is. It's a whole new thing. Kirby has talked about that. How NIL, so you're recruiting transfer portal guys. It's not just your usual cycle. You're recruiting everybody all the time. And a lot of coaches they are not up for that. So B-Will's forehead says, just saw some video of somebody has toilet paper tumors. At least somebody has.
All right. We got the live feed of that. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick.
Maybe
I'm
we can
pulling
see
it up.
The TP hanging up there.
Pulling it up. And the angle I'm seeing, I do not see any right now. There was none from yesterday. We know that. Or I guess 2 days ago. It's already Monday. Yeah, I don't see any. Like I said, I'm close to there. I'm gonna be driving here soon. I will drive by and put my own 2 eyes on it. We'll see. That'd be wild. But mostly this time of day, it's students going out,
right?
And they're going to class. I don't know if they're ready to have a good time tonight because it's Halloween. So
yeah, they're dressing in their slutty, whatever the occupation is, costumes, and gonna have a time out in the town tonight. So, all right, so we got I am Hop saying one more thing. Harsin's recruiting was questionable at best, criminally negligent at worst, and to get a good coach, you got to pay. Let's do it, AU. You know what? I'm gonna kick this to you first, Means. What do you think about Harsin's recruiting?
Well, if for our folks listening to our Mike Mack, or I guess remix of Ike Mack and Memes episode last week that we put out, I went ahead and made my hot take of, had all the stuff in February not happened, recruiting probably wouldn't be where it is right now. I can't go backsies on that. I don't want to go backsies on that. I still feel that is true. Now, granted, do I feel like they have a top 10 recruiting class? I'm not saying that. Would it probably be better than it is right now? Yes. If you didn't have that happen, and let's just say they were already bowl eligible right now, I think the recruiting's rolling, because at that point he's going to be here in 2023. Everybody's rallying, everybody's supporting. But I've said this, and I will say this again and again and again and again. The story of the Bryan Harsin era will be perfectly surmised with too little, too late. And I think that starts with recruiting. And that was the easiest thing to build up goodwill amongst the people. They didn't do that, and just the rest of it's dominoes from there. I mean, that's where you got to start it. And they just were behind the 8 ball from the moment that they got here. And I get there was a lot going on with the roster, the evaluation, getting cultured in. You still had a bunch of COVID protocol issues going on when they got started. But still, you're on the top of the mountain as far as college football coaching goes in the Power 5. There's no room for excuses at this level. If you're making excuses, you're not doing what you get to get done. Guess what? You don't even get to coach out a full 2 years. That's where they are. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely it hadn't been good. I mean, let's be real, they lost. I mean, they were losing guys. Just doesn't put them in a good position. So you can't argue. Let's just put it this way: you can't argue with the results, can't argue with what's on paper, and the reality is the reality. So yeah, there's no other way to put it. I mean, it is what it is. The body of work speaks for itself.
Right, for sure, and can't argue with that. And I would say, while I don't think I'm with you, Memes, that you can't take away the roadblock that was placed in his path. Now, he still had to do something with the on-field product this year to fulfill any potential that the class would have had. But that roadblock, combined with the on-field product this year, has made it to where you can't secure a great class. Now, I do think that there was potential here to turn things around, because, I mean, Jimothy Fisher is a terrible head coach, and he is trying to make excuses by saying this. But what he said was, well, no, we don't. Who wants to go somewhere where you're winning all the time? No, that's stupid. People do want to go where they're winning. They want to be the reason the winning is happening. So if you see opportunity to go and be the reason, go ahead.
I was going to say, NIL's rolling right now. I mean, we're seeing all the stuff that's going on, and that was definitely a big issue with last year, having to kind of navigate those waters, and no one knew what was going on. The laws were different at each state's level, and Alabama had a law, and they like completely, we got to start this over, kind of put everybody in limbo with it. What was the NCAA going to do with that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? There were a lot of issues with it, but now that's going. But the issue is, you got NIL. It was just, and who I cannot remember who said this. I think it might have been Ike the other night. Where it's just you patch up one bleeding spot on your body, and then just a complete another one starts. So you fix one problem, and then a whole another one starts. So they get NIL rolling. Well, then from there you're not winning. So it's just you got to have every single thing working for the plane to fly. And it's like, all right. Well, we fixed the propeller. We got a leak in the gas tank. Oh, we got the leak in the gas tank fixed. We got a crack in the window. And it was just that has been the story that's been going on and on and on. And it was just every excuse was just a can kicked down. All right, we got this rolling up. Now this is problem. We got this going. Now this. And as a head coach, as everybody, that's the stuff that's got to get fixed. And it was just like if you had done everything that you knew that you needed to do, none of these things would be a problem. And that's just it is what it is. If once this got better, and that translates to player personnel in the field. You had these problems, they fix it. Something else going wrong. Something else is regressing, and it comes down to the guy up top at the end of the day.
Yeah, it does. Now, I was always of the belief that the number is low, but the quality of recruits that we have gotten so far, I think is really good. Comparatively, I think it's in line with what we had gotten in the 8 years before Harsin got here, and I liked the type of player he was getting. He was really getting the players who matched his personality, which is play, develop, get better. He's selling NFL development. He's buying in, or these players are buying in on the idea of I'm coming here to coach and get better, not to be a star day one. He's not getting the most entitled players. What you're seeing with entitled players is what's happening with Jimbo, which is why, again, we want 5 stars, and you want the guys where NIL is going to help pull them. But the guys who are the highest rated and who are most in line for big NIL deals, there's a little diva that comes along with that. A lot of times.
Yeah, you can't. I couldn't imagine how distracting thousands and tens of thousands of dollars a week or month or whatever these guys are getting consistently.
Right.
How much that could be on top of all the other stressors on that. I mean, and then just how essentially just the mini celebrity that comes along being a football player. That's a lot to corral as a coach. And there's a lot of challenges that are going to be coming along with this to get these guys to focus and buy and say, hey, if you like the good stuff, because I think as the kids, like you like the pros that are coming out of this. It came really easy in high school. You were the best of the best. You probably didn't have to try to be 4 or 5 star.
Right.
Not the case in college. It's definitely not going to be the case in the NFL. And it's hard to tell a 19-year-old kid that.
Yeah, and that's the thing I liked about Harsin's recruiting. The guys who were coming to work, and we didn't have to worry about that diva mentality because he wasn't going to sell that. He wasn't selling it. That's not the guys that were coming in. So I hope we keep these guys, and I hope whoever we get in isn't more of the diva personalities, because I think that can go wrong really fast, especially when they're getting cash in their hands. When the businesses that support the university and support the football program are investing in these players to be good, they have less incentive to be the best player they can be if they can get paid without stepping foot on the field, without listening to the head coach. All of that is a new problem that has to be that is created by NIL, and with no limit being on these deals, somebody has to navigate that. Now, you get somebody who's a disciplinarian and kind of a totalitarian and says, listen, you better be focused on playing ball. I think we need somebody like that, which is why, even though he's not a sexy name, I am open to hearing arguments for Matt Rhule's candidacy as Auburn's head coach. I just am. We'll talk about it more later. But that's why I liked somebody who's a no-nonsense NFL pro development type guy, because you can kind of put a tamp on some of the nonsense that comes up with entitled players. But we can get into more of that later, unless you got some input on that right now.
Let's keep rolling.
Let's roll. See, Corey, and this is why I started this question. Do we need to get somebody with NFL experience, or are we passing on that now? That's why I like Matt Rhule. Another good thing that happened was we got essentially a player personnel director in here with the guy who came from the Cowboys, and he's still working here. Now, he was a Harsin hire. I don't know if it was a Harsin idea to create that position or not.
So
or
that was not actually, that was confirmed that Harsin did not hire him. That was someone.
Okay, good.
Someone in the athletic department that was not Harsin made that hire. That was kind of confirmed in the underground. I've actually sourced that from a few different people. I'm no insider, but I accidentally have stuff fall in my lap. So that one I do know for sure, which may mean, and actually I listened to an interview with his where he was talking about it. I believe it was with Jeffrey Lee and Keith Niebuhr. And He had mentioned basically his first job when he came on was to do an entire roster evaluation, and just some of the language and the tone that he had given in that interview. Maybe not to me, the way I perceived it is I didn't feel like he was super confident in the direction things were going. And one thing that he mentioned too with recruiting was everything's got to move faster. Everything was moving way too slow. So my job was coming here when you get offers out, when you get every step of the recruiting process was rolling in at maybe a 3 or 4 out of 10, and we need to be 8, 9, or 10 with the speed. And that was the issue that was going on. And it seems like that hire made sense. Now, as far as the head coach goes, I would lean back to say the head coach doesn't matter as much.
Right.
I think that you need to fill that with support staff and assistant coaches. And I think Harsin was kind of in the process of doing that. That's why I love the move of Ike Hilliard. That's why I love getting, I think it was Fabianich in there and some of these other folks. So I think you can supplement that with you got assistants that have played in the NFL. You've got assistants that have coached in the NFL, maybe some coordinators here and there. So then you can really keep selling the NFL development, which I think that was the dream that Harsin staff were trying to do.
Right.
I think you keep rolling with that, but you also win and recruit, and you've got a pretty good thing. You got a pretty good balance. That's what I was saying earlier is just you're really good here, but you're just down here with everything else. It's just nothing was balanced, and you're not going to win with that. So keep that mentality because, in this day and age, you got NIL and everything else. But at the end of the day, NFL is the goal. So that's you need to keep that as being a core component of the program as well.
Right. Yeah. I like the formula of a head coach has to be good at the program thing, the college level program thing, the political part of being a head coach, and being in front of the press, answering those questions, doing the events, because being a head coach of a college football program isn't limited to what you do on Saturdays and practice. There's a lot that goes along with that. I mean, being a head coach in NFL too, you got to do some community stuff, but with college, it's even greater. You got to go to a basketball game and be there. You got to take recruits to the basketball game. And pros, you don't have to go to the Charlotte Hornets game if you're a Panthers head coach. You're a Panthers head coach, so you just go coach your Panthers. But I like the idea of a head coach of college being a college head coach, but the assistants having NFL experience, because what they can say is, I've coached these players who have done this. They have your body type. They have your skill set. Let me tell you what type of offenses I've seen, whether I coached them or coached against them, that make a lot of sense for you. Man, they're really using the guy with your skill set over in Seattle. They're really using the guy who can rush the passer like you in Dallas. I think you'd be a real good fit for what that DC wants to do. Those are things you can say as an NFL head coach. Assistant coach or position coach with that experience that you can't say if all you've ever been was a guy who played in college and now you're a college position coach. So I think there's definite value there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think all things considered, it's hard to argue that Ike Hilliard was not, and you didn't see improvement out of the guys with him. So
right. And instantly better recruiting. I mean, I like the two that we've got on board for this current cycle, for the 23 cycle, more than I've liked any 2 wide receiver commits that we've gotten since, I don't know, maybe that triple threat class we got. I think it was Kyle Davis, Marquise McLean, and was it Myers? Craig Myers?
I have to go. Yeah, I'd have to go look at that. Would have been, was that 14 or 15, one of those classes in there?
15, one of those. That was, now it didn't pan out. The class didn't turn out like we thought it did. But yeah, that's the last class. I was like, oh man, we got something. So yeah, I like where we're going with the wide receivers. I like what we had with Eason. It was a bummer to see him go. The guys really like playing for Eason. I think there's value in head coaches, NFL people with experience. And Corey Webb was right. We did have Eli Stove in that class. That was a good class.
Yeah, and I liked Eli Stove, and I wish he'd stayed. I wish he'd stayed last season and taken that year. I think he'd have been. I think the team really could have used it. I mean, he was just. Yeah. He wasn't flashy. He was very. I would kind of compare him he was very much like a Sean White guy. He wasn't flashy, but he was so consistent and just so efficient. And like that's really. That doesn't necessarily need to be your number one wide receiver, but to have a guy out there that's a 2 or 3 that you can just always count on to make a very clutch play. He's going to be in the right spot. That's his I think his gameplay at Auburn was very underrated.
Yeah, for sure. He was a big deal here. All right, so what else we got? I see some people asking, do I still want Bill Clark as our coach?
Love this
Well,
question.
let me say this. I have the ultimate respect for what Bill Clark did for a program that essentially got the axe. I don't think there's any worse momentum than saying, hey, you just shut the doors for a season, so you're not going to have a recruiting class. The guys here, they'll probably leave, and they should, because you got no program. And oh, my bad. Yeah, start it back up. I think that's the worst case, and that's the worst job. It's worse than when they started, when Penn State got hit with all the sanctions after the Joe Pa scandal went down, or after it came to light. I think that what happened at UAB was the worst, because you aren't even a Penn State where you've got this cachet to hit the restart button, where you're a big deal to everybody in the state of Pennsylvania and all this stuff. You've got almost nothing as University of Alabama in Birmingham, and you get killed there. That program gets killed. For him to do what he did to turn that program around, get it to winning its conference, I think 2 times in 3 years. I think that's a phenomenal football job. That's a phenomenal head coaching job. Apparently he is not very popular with our boosters, and he's been very vocal about how he is not a big fan of let's say this. He took no pause in kind of slinging dirt on Auburn's name when it came to that head coaching search in late 2020. I don't think anybody here who makes decisions would remember that kindly. So it may not be, and I would have ignored a cultural or a philosophical fit before Bryan Harsin. After Bryan Harsin, I'm going to say, listen, you may be a great coach, but you cannot be the best coach for here. So, yes, I like what Bill Clark has done, but I don't think anybody would forget how he tried to put us on Front Street in 2020. So, no.
If you go back to his Prattville days and early Saban times, and he was high school coaching, he was funneling them boys up to Alabama, and you did not see a lot of talent running its way toward Auburn. So I think for the people who have some really, really good memories, they who follow recruiting especially will remember those days quite fondly. And I say that very sarcastically.
And quite fondly. All right. So, of course, a comment I love to see. Dave Aranda. I will hear arguments for Dave Aranda. Go if you want to.
You see we'll go Johnny Manziel here. Man's got a fat buyout. I mean, if we're shelling, I mean, I think you got to pay nearly twice what Kiffin. 3, 4. It'd be way more money than Kiffin would cost. He just signed a massive contract. That's Jimbo money right there. I don't think, like I said, if you're paying that kind of money, the coach doesn't have multiple national championships. Yeah. No, that's stupid. I mean, you might as well just pay Nick Saban $30 million a year and just see if he'd bite. Like, that's just there's way too much money between that happening. I mean, I get it. The name makes sense. The pedigree makes sense. The jump makes sense, but he's getting a lot of money to have a lot less pressure. So
right.
I think there's other coaches you can get that have just as much upside for a lot less money. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people think this process is a blank check game. It's not. Money does play a factor.
Right. Yeah, it definitely does. Definitely. If money didn't play a factor, then they wouldn't have had to try to manufacture a scandal to get rid of Harsin. They would just fire them as soon as the signing day closed and it wasn't acceptable. They'd be like, nope, let's get out of here. So maybe on Dave Aranda. Money's a big factor, though, so we will see.
Good.
Nicholas Frazier, we are talking about who the next head coach will be, but how desirable is the job to a potential top-tier coach? What are y'all's opinions about this? Memes. I know you've had this conversation.
It's a spicy one here.
It's a spicy one. How do you feel now with what's happened recently? We've got a new president and a new AD, and I think that may change. Specifically, the language in the tweet by ESPN reporter, I think it was Pete Thamel. I think no, it was Ross Dellinger. Excuse me. It was Sports Illustrated. Ross Dellinger said, incentives and assurances to assure that it is his job. It is the AD's job that he is running his own department. Okay, that sounds like a change of function for the athletic department and for the athletic director. Is that enough to stave off concerns about the head coaching position being a stifled, a poisoned position here at Auburn, or about it being a bad job here at Auburn.
Yeah, can I go a little rant about this? I got
Go.
to get on
Go.
my pulpit here.
Go.
All right. So, in relating to this question, expanding a little bit on this,
Mhm.
the deal there, I think we'll famously start with what Venables said. And you want to talk about bullet dodged. I mean, look what's happened at Oklahoma. The unity, we don't know who's running the show there, et cetera, et cetera.
Year one. Can we make that judgment about Venables after just 1 year, though?
I am, because Oklahoma was not in a bad situation when he got there. I mean, you talk about the keys to a Corvette and you turn it to a bicycle that quickly. I have a hard time believing that. Now, had Oklahoma been in a situation like Tennessee was in, or even South Carolina or Florida, I'd have a little bit more grace. But Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley did not leave that program in a pile of mud. But anyway, to not get distracted on that debate.
Okay.
Keep moving forward. And that's my take on it. That's just my take. But to keep
let's
moving
debate
on this,
that later down the line. We'll debate.
Yeah, we'll table that one. But to go on this is what it's going to have to happen with the job. Is it a top tier job? Yes. One, I mean, let's be real. At the end of the day, money. Auburn could pay just as much money to have any coach come as anybody, and facilities and resources. They got this massive, super nice, expensive football facility that's about to open up. So you got NIL rolling. You got all these other things that are going. Auburn is a program that can win championships in multiple sports. They've got the following, they've got the tradition, you got everything you need here to be at the top of the game. So that's checkbox number one. What hinders this is what your rivals are doing. You have got the worst position of any school in the entire nation because you have to pay Alabama and Georgia every year, and you got to be in the SEC West. But you also have super high expectations. So what other team that is on that same tier has to look at their schedule every year and say, oh, loss every year? Like, that is a bad spot for them to be in. But most importantly, going back to what it's going to take for this to happen, is it's going to take unity. You got to get somebody that can do whatever they're doing and rally everybody. Because I'm even looking at the comments right now. Everybody's this name, this name, this name, this name, this, and this. The Auburn factions and the fans are very divided right now. Everybody's kind of got their own club and school of thought. And this is stuff I've been kind of confirming with my people while I've been down here. Mm-hmm. And that's very divisive. There's kind of these little factions of sections and money people who have influence and who have important numbers that they can call, saying, well, so-and-so and so-and-so, I think it should be this. Well, so-and-so and so-and-so, I think it should be this. And the issue is that never got resolved with Harsin, because Harsin was such a left field hire. Everybody was still kind of left in their little friendship circle, their little influence circle, thinking, well, I thought it should be this way. And when it didn't go that way, everybody thought, well, my way was better than whoever did this, that, or another. I guess being more so on the Allen Green train. So there's no unity. Not everybody is behind one common idea, one common goal. And that makes this job a lot more harder. And you've got to get a coach in there who realizes this is the situation, and they've got to play the game to fix that. They've got to go in there. They've got to shake the right hands. They got to yuck it up with the right people. They've got to sell the dream to the fans. And that was something, ironically, Gene Chizik was incredible at. He was such a salesman to the program. He was such a hype man, way better than Tuberville, way better than Malzahn, and better than Harsin, obviously. You got to get a coach that can do some of that and do it on the field too. And if this program gets unified and those stands are filled up with people screaming, tickets are what they are for basketball, this is going to be a train that's going to be really hard to stop. But you've got to get that unity. You've got to get everybody on the same page, and you can't have any doubt for a second. And that's going to be a really, really hard thing to do. But that's what they got to do. And yeah, is it going to take a top tier coach to do that? Yes, but it's going to take a top tier personality and a salesman. Why Bruce Pearl's successful? Bruce Pearl will tell you, Bruce Pearl didn't play college basketball. Mm-hmm. Bruce Pearl was a marketing major in school. Marketing major. What does Bruce do better than anybody? He sells the program. He sells the dream. He's gotten every Auburn fan standing behind him in unity. You got to have that same kind of deal with a football coach.
I agree. I agree that it's necessary. Well, let me ask you a different question then, along the same lines. With what we know has been the case for at least the last 25 years, before, because Bowden went through this too, the last 30 years of college football, of Auburn football, we can point to booster meddling being the
Mm-hmm.
demise of almost every coach. Almost. Does that, number one, do you think it's changed based on the little information that we got with the statement about the AD's contract? Number two, if booster meddling is a definite, if it comes along with everything that you said with the facilities now and the spotlight and the money that we can pay, does that change your opinion on what type of job it is?
No, I mean that's gotten to be a well-known fact, and like I said, that just comes down to the fact that there's division. People don't meddle. People don't try to make their influence to get on the phone with the right people. People don't use their influence to try to muddy certain waters with reporters to do this, that, or another, unless they got an agenda that they want to push out. And when there's division, that is the problem, because everybody thinks they're right and the other person's wrong. They know how to do it better than the other person. And when nothing's going right, if you're looking up people above you, like, oh, they're not getting it right. Well, surely I'm gonna kind of throw my hat in there, see if I can stir some waters and get things moving in the right direction because you care.
Right.
It makes it a tough job. And at this point, it's becoming February made that a national laughing stock for Auburn. So now that's the punching line. Oh, they're so divided. You don't know who's running. You don't know who's the chef in that kitchen. That has been the storyline, and that is what went. That is why everything in February just left a horrifically damning effect over this program.
Right.
But it was such a big story. Everybody across the nation got that. So even if it's not as real as it is, perception can be reality. And like it or not, the way that Auburn handled all that with its fans, with its administration, with the fact that they said nothing for far too long, now you have that black cloud above you. Maybe the meddling's not as bad as it seems, but the problem is you're not doing anything. No one is doing anything to prove that that's not the case. And
right,
you can change those narratives. And maybe people inside, they kind of got their bubbles. They're blocked out. They don't think that's important. It's not a good look nationally. People who you're trying to recruit, or they be coaches, players, what do you think they're hearing? Who do you think they're hearing it from? You think they're hearing it from behind closed doors at conference centers or athletic complexes, or they're hearing what people are tweeting and saying on sports talk shows, et cetera, et cetera? Like, they got to get that fixed.
Yeah, they do. The only thing I can say about it is, if I having worked jobs that I liked and also jobs that I don't like, having somebody make your job harder than it is really, really frustrating, and it drains you faster than just 100%. Doing the job. Again, seeing what we saw from Harsin, I understand Gus a little more. I understand why it looked like he got shorter and shorter with interviews and less talkative and less personality from him, because you could see it was wearing him down. The influence from outside, well, it was coming from inside the house. The call was coming from inside the house because apparently they were trying to put Kevin Steele in his position. So that type of meddling, it wore him down. I think Gus had the amount of time necessary to make the decisions and the changes to get a winning program going that got boosters' hands off of the program. I think he bought himself that time with year one. Year one for Gus was exactly what you needed to go, listen, I told you I got it. Take your hands off. Let me fix it. I know what I'm doing. And I think he got that leeway for 14 and 15. 16 is when it started to slow down, because he put 5 quarterbacks out there in game one against the big opponent. And they're like, okay, listen, maybe you don't know what you're doing. You need our help, don't you? Let's help you out. A coach is going to have to. Yeah. I think a coach is going to have to be able to do the winning that gets him the runway to do all the movement he needs to do to get this thing on autopilot. I think any coach coming in may be wary of if he's going to get long enough to do that. But if there's any silver lining from the Bryan Harsin tenure, it's that coaches coming in now will not be disillusioned that it is their job and only their job. They will understand the weight of the job and everything that comes with it, good and bad. So even if it is unnecessarily high pressure because of outside influences, there's no head coach who could take this job that wouldn't already know and understand that. They'll know exactly what they're stepping into.
The $1 million question that I'm really curious to see is, there's been even to go back to February, there's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of weird things that have happened across the board, kind of on the inside. And I think once this dust all settles, people are going to be less scared to maybe leak out the truth to some things. So I think a lot of these narratives and questions and oddities that have had a lot of fans just feeling very anxious and empty and wondering.
Mm-hmm.
I think a very easy example of a story that a lot of people are wondering about is what happened with Cornelius Williams. What caused that firing as quickly as it did? What really went down with the Austin Davis situation and all these other little things that were just like, that seems so strange. We never really got clarification as to what was going on with that. We might start seeing people feel a little bit more loose to maybe leak these things because the people they're talking about aren't there anymore.
Right.
And that may give people some answers that kind of give, if nothing else, they get a little bit of closure as to what's happened the last year and a half.
Right.
And hopefully so. And maybe that'll make some people feel better. And if nothing else, just to help people move on from this really what historically will be a very rough patch in the history for Auburn.
Right.
And I'm curious to see that because I know it's going to start happening. I know people are going to say, hey, I wasn't able to say this before, but I feel safe to say it now because they're done. Here was the truth behind this. And I think a lot of these missing links, we're going to start seeing dots connected real soon.
Yeah. And I know because we know who we know. And yeah. But yeah, it's going to be interesting with some of that. It's the main.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a very good question, Nicholas. Thank you for getting us on that tangent. We like that. James Barnett, fellas, how much do you pay the next head coach? My thought is if you open up the bank like they did for Jimothy, you are stuck regardless of results. You know what, James? That's a good point. Because this entire time, I have been of the understanding that if they want the name, it depends on what type of coach they get. If you want established, if you want home run hire, if you want the person that will, like you said, memes, everybody's moving the same direction. That's going to get everybody on board. The fans are going to be like, oh, wow. The boosters are going to be like, wow, I didn't think we could get him. The fans are going to be like, wow. Not just the fans, but alum who donate. I'm be like, oh, okay, I'll put down another 1,000 in my yearly contributions for this guy. That hire will cost money. It will get the program moving in the same direction. That's going to cost money. If you pay that money and the guy is just name and no results, you're stuck and you're screwed. It's a very similar situation to Jimbo Fisher. Now, I don't think there are many coaches as bad as Jimbo Fisher. Let me say that. He's a special kind of bad coach. All right. But I do think that is a possibility. But if everybody's on board, boosters, fan base, recruits, donating alum, then what you have is you're going to get top tier recruiting for however many years he's in good graces. You're going to get the fans funding this thing, excitement, energy. And that guy's going to get 3 to 4 years. If it's a big enough name, he's going to pull everybody together 3 to 4 years to make it right. If you've got the transfer portal, it's 2022, and you've got 4 or 5-star guys hitting the transfer portal, not even just 4 or 5-star guys who have already been really good where they're at, regardless of what star they were recruited at. I know they're already good players like Jordan Addison jumping in the portal. There is a name. I don't know who it is. I can't say who it is right now. I have no idea. That can go, oh, where the next guy who led his conference in receiving can go, oh, that dude's down there. Yeah, I'm leaving here. I'm going there. That gets him 3 or 4 years to make it right. And it's easier to have success under those conditions. But you're going to pay for that guy. I don't think Auburn is a blank check type of university. Texas A&M is. Auburn is not. The nature of their alumni base is that they are a blank check university. Auburn is not. I thought Bruce Pearl's deal would be bigger. I thought it would be 6-7 million. We got him for just under 6, plus some incentives that boost him up there over time. Brian Kelly's deal shocked me. I'm like, what? He's never won a national championship.
Well, the big deal on Bruce's was he wanted to take a little bit of money out of his pocket to make sure his assistants were taken care of.
That's true.
So he most definitely could have probably padded on more, but he was very much on the same page of these guys behind me over here couldn't do it without him. I'm good. Make sure they're good. But let's be real here. What is the consistency there? Look at you're not seeing turnover on his assistant staff. I mean,
Right.
those guys are hanging around, and that consistency top to bottom is very, very important. I mean, that's what's killed Auburn. I mean, let's look at how many offensive coordinators has Auburn had in the last 8 years. I mean, it's just been up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So yeah, assistant staff retention is also very important. And that's one thing I don't think enough people are talking about with the head coach. Everyone's saying, "Oh, who's the head coach? Who's the head coach?" I know we can't really know one until we know another. But to me, I'm almost, hey, I think the assistant coaches, that's a conversation not enough people are having. I think one of which goes to how many support staff people survive this turnover. Because if you get a new AD, so like you gotta be thinking a lot of those people are wondering, is my job safe? Then you got to think about it too. How many assistant coaches? Obviously, we've said Cadillac, and Zach a lot. And I guess Trevon's a staff member, but still kind of goes on with support staff. How many of these people make the job? Do they take different roles? And then what are the guys you bringing in, whether it be OC, DC, et cetera, positions? Those are going to be the make it and break it. And unpopular opinion, if Harsin had a better support staff top to bottom this year and last year, he doesn't have the turnover he does. He's probably still the coach right now, and people probably aren't wanting to kick him out the door.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said for how good your support staff is, and it is truly a chain as strong as the weakest link. And I think there were plenty of weak links on his chain.
Yeah, there were too many.
Yeah, I don't even know what y'all was just talking about, but yeah, I agree.
I'm
support staff.
Here. And then
All
I
right.
got to bounce too. We're at this one right here.
All right, cool. Well, we appreciate y'all guys sticking in. Did our guy win the shirt? Did he ever make himself known?
Oh my God, I didn't even have time to look.
Well,
Had no time to look.
well, somebody will let me know. Anyway, all right, we'll keep it going, man. All right, holler at you later. Be Will. Antonio
Peace.
Smith's jumping in here. Do we end season on a high? Maybe a bowl appearance? Unlikely. I mean, we can't even. I mean, to get to 6 wins at this point in time means that we've got to beat Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Western Kentucky, and all of those seem like a difficult proposition. I don't know what kind of offense we even tried out here against Mississippi State, considering we don't even know who is going to be calling plays, all of that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be such a pessimist here, but I believe it when we see it. I mean, I just don't know. I haven't seen anything on the field that gives me any confidence that could or would happen. So,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I've
it's
had
just
some interesting conversations while I was gone off of camera just now. So we'll have more to come on some things that I've heard recently. Apparently, if you guys have been keeping track of the tumors camera, someone did actually roll tumors today. So
okay. I didn't see it on the camera, but I didn't have every angle. So I'm about to drive by there shortly, but interesting.
Nick jumps in here and says, thoughts on Chip Kelly, considering UCLA has very little support right now, has the NFL experience too. I'm not a big Chip Kelly guy, but I'm not against this either. But what are your thoughts on Chip Kelly?
Years ago, I was really into the Chip Kelly hire, but once again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. I think you have the same deal of if you were anti-Harsin because of the fact of this guy isn't from here, he doesn't know how things work around here, he doesn't have the connections here. How can you look at a guy like Chip Kelly and say, yeah, I want that guy? Because once again, Chip Kelly's a guy from out west. He came east to the Eagles, didn't work out for him. I think that is his neck of the woods. You didn't like the last guy that you got from out west. I don't know if that's to me, I think that's a real stupid take to go buy the car you just traded in.
Yeah, can't say I'm in disagreement there. Like, not if you're trying to get someone who's a good fit for the South, and Chip Kelly doesn't necessarily fit that. Anon Rush says, give me Lane Kiffin as head coach, bring Muschamp as DC. We'll have the best offense and defense in the country. This is a very good offense and defense combination. If he could get Muschamp as the DC, then you're going to have a very strong offense and defense combination. I can't argue with this logic, but you still have Lane Kiffin making decisions on when we're going for it on 4th down. So
that punt the other night, my gosh.
I am Hop jumps in and says Dale McGee. There's a lot of people who want Dale McGee to be a part of the Auburn staff. I am one of those people who feels like he's a great recruiter. The question is, what position do you put him in? Like, you're going to have to give him a raise or something else to be coming over here to Auburn. He's not going to come just because he loves Auburn. And he's never been a play caller, so you can't make him an OC. If Lane Kiffin is the head coach and you have him as a quasi OC just for recruiting, that sounds really good. But then, is he going to be responsible for the running back room, which is Cadillac's current role? Do you just keep Cadillac as a running back guy and you have 2 power running back recruit? Like, I don't know how that works from a staff dynamic standpoint. Again, not against Del McGee, but just wondering how that works. And it really is about the right combination of people once you get to talking about Del McGee. Cleveland Brown jumps in. Whoever it is, first priority is to fix the O-line. Good Lord. Yes.
Yeah, that's been the first priority for 6 years.
Yeah, and no one has figured out the combination yet and we've already lost one of the recruits that we had. So that urgency has ratcheted up a lot. Joe Kyle jumps in here and says, last 7 years, 36 and 35 in SEC against SEC opponents. Will go below 500 this year. Why should we think anything is going to change? There's not a lot of hope for the future. Like you just said there, Memes, there's not a lot that we've seen on the field that makes you say we're definitely going to have some sort of improvement between now and the end of the year.
Well, I think this question really begs to going for those who are students of the blue chip ratio. With everything going on, because Auburn was like right on the fence of being in the blue chip ratio, barring just some crazy recruiting turnaround and some crazy transfer portal dreams come true, I'm pretty safe to say that you're on pace to fall out of that. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, but with the transfer portal, we're definitely going to lose a lot of those blue chips, and you're going to have to get a bunch of them back in to even be back in that range of top 15 again. Yeah, for sure. All right. We got Jackson, who super chatted but didn't actually say anything that I saw here. I did see a thing that said that Grunt USMC did say that he was here. Hopefully he knows by now that he needs to send us an email with his information, or otherwise we still can't get a shirt out to him. But yeah, that's it, man. We've still got almost 1,000 people in here, but the chats have started to slow down a little bit. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here and let people get back to their days? And I'm sure this will be talked about much over the next few days and a bunch of different corners of the internet, but any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I had an entire spread on my desk ready to get my quarterly taxes done. I was planning on having the most boring day ever. And then this happens, so my accountant is going to be thrilled that I didn't get anything done. But this is just hey, you know what? Auburn trumps taxes every time. We know that. That's essentially the law of the land. And as I kind of mentioned and teased earlier, I think we're going to see so much more developing information come out of this, with an AD hire and a coaching firing all in the same week. I mean, you couldn't ask for more juicy content rolling on, especially getting close to the end of the season, especially getting close to early signing day and basketball starting up next week. I mean, you have just lit the afterburner for Auburn content that's about to come out, and exciting Auburn content. I mean, there is going to be stories and stories coming up, and I mean, it truly is just, for me, I'm just like going to take it all in, buckle up situation. Well, like I said, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more to be coming out. I think everybody needs to stay tuning in, because I don't think there's going to be any shortage of good stuff around the corner, especially probably in the next, by sunset today, we'll be having even more stuff. So
yeah, there'll definitely be more information coming out. Again, I've been getting text messages and phone calls today, and more information coming out as the day progresses. So be looking out for more stuff. A couple more super chats, and I'll let you guys go. Jordan Ingram, whoever the new coach is, will have a more favorable schedule for the first Auburn schedule. It's going to be essentially the same schedule that Bryan Harsin had in his first year, though. So it's not going to be drastically different. We'll see how they do in their first year. And then Jackson jumps in here and asks about Chris Kleinman as a potential. Have not heard that name get thrown around, but listen, at this point in time, there's a lot of directions you can go. It's not just about the head coach, though. It's about what kind of staff that head coach can put together, and then how that head coach allows that staff to do their job and be best positioned for things, right? Like, you can't have operational deficiencies within your staff, because those things don't allow for the staff to be successful nor the players to be successful. So there's a lot of things that we've got to get figured out here at Auburn coming up in the next few weeks. Really, I mean, we're in November essentially right now. So the season's going to be ending in a couple of weeks. There are a lot of things that need to get figured out in a few weeks before bowl season starts. So we'll be looking
the brass at, I'm saying the brass at Auburn, what they've got to do, the leadership to fix, to make the fastest turnaround for just this angst that is just a cloud over everybody right now, is if they can just make good decisions and make them fast. I know that's just so ideal, best case scenario. If they want to turn this around in the right way, make something happen quickly. And if they can do that, I think that'll have people feeling a lot better about a lot of things.
Well, I mean, listen, I think quick is going
Don't
to
give it time to fester.
Because there is an AD hire that's happened now. I think we can start to see some momentum because they're going to start to be able to realistically do some reaching out to some people. You don't have a coach in the seat right now, so the conversations about who the new head coach can be more public and open, some real interviews being put out there, and the guy who's going to be doing the hiring will be in the seat by the end of the day today. So he's going to hit the ground running because he's not new to the SEC footprint, so he already knows how to get in here and start the chains moving because he's done this before just a few years ago at Mississippi State. So looking forward to seeing what comes out here, and we appreciate all of you who have been in here. You guys have been tuning into the War Report. Guest in here, our guy Auburn Memes. Appreciate you stopping in and jumping in with us to talk about this stuff. We will definitely be talking, myself and Memes, a little bit more on the podcast. So if you guys aren't hip to it, the Auburn Express is our podcast. That's probably going to be going live on Wednesday. The conversation between myself, Brandy, and Memes, talking more about this and things that have developed in the last however long it is before we record that. But we'll look forward to talking with you guys then. Until next time, and as always, War Eagle, and we are out of here. See y'all next time. Peace.